Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a moment a family of 5, not just living in the countryside, but truly living with nature, deeply, reciprocally intertwined. Can it actually be done? Is this just some beautiful, aspirational, ideal, maybe a kind of pastoral fantasy? Or is it a genuinely practical, achievable reality that more of us could embrace?
Right.
Because for so many of us, that dream of moving out to the country, seeking a simpler, more connected life, it's powerful. It keeps coming back.
It really does.
But what if that dream wasn't just about escaping the hustle of urban life? What if it was about cultivating something deeper? A profound, active, truly harmonious relationship with the natural world around us, where your actions literally give back to the land.
And what's truly fascinating, looking at the extensive sources we've explored, is the resounding answer. It's not only feasible, but it's actually being validated more and more, both by cutting-edge ecological research and, thriving real-world examples all across the globe.
Yep.
So our mission today is to really embark on a deep dive into the precise how. How could a family actually achieve this kind of, radical way of living?
Moving beyond just sustainability.
Exactly. We'll move far beyond those conventional notions of mere sustainability, which, let's face it, often just implies reducing harm, doing less bad.
Right. Minimizing impact.
To a vision of deep integration, fostering a mutually beneficial, truly reciprocal relationship with the land and, all its countless inhabitants.
So the core question guiding us is,
can a family of 5 genuinely live in profound harmony with nature in a rural setting, practicing ethical land stewardship that actively regenerates ecosystems, and crucially, maintaining a non-exploitative, non-displacing relationship with native wildlife and plant communities?
And wow, to tackle this ambitious question, we've really pulled from a comprehensive kind of interdisciplinary stack of sources.
We really have.
We're talking rigorous global case studies, deep philosophical and conceptual frameworks that honestly challenge our very understanding of place, and remarkably practical hands-on strategies that span so many vital domains.
Everything from building to water.
Yeah, we've looked at the nitty-gritty of ecological design, natural building, innovative water and energy systems, complexities of legal stuff, zoning considerations, and even the intricate dynamics of community building.
It's a lot.
It is. So this deep dive is truly your shortcut to being exceptionally well-informed on this inspiring and often surprising topic. We're distilling the most important nuggets of insight, helping you understand what's most important and why it matters.
Indeed. And what we're exploring, it isn't just a tweak to existing rural living. It's really about embracing an entirely new paradigm for how humans and nature interact.
That's a perfect segue, actually, because before we can even talk about the practicalities, the how-to, we absolutely need to define what we mean by harmony in this context.
Good.
Because, like you said, this isn't just conventional rural living, and it's certainly not just about being green or, merely minimizing your negative impact. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Our sources reveal this is about a fundamental, almost revolutionary shift in how we relate to the world around us. It's about becoming an active, conscious participant in nature's grand, intricate plan. What does that participation actually look like day to day for a family?
Well, the core tenets that come through from our sources are incredibly clear and really interconnected. Firstly, it's about prioritizing deep observation.
Okay, deep observation. What does that mean exactly?
It isn't just looking at the land casually, it's spending years, if necessary, truly listening to it, understanding its rhythms, its historical patterns, its ecological processes, before you even think about intervening significantly.
Wow.
Yes, patience is key. Secondly, it requires ethical land stewardship. This means treating the land not as a resource bank to be extracted from.
Right, not just a commodity.
Exactly. But as a living entity that you are responsible for nurturing and actively protecting. And thirdly, it involves cultivating a non-exploitative, non-displacing relationship with native wildlife and the local ecology.
So not clearing forests for your farm, not fencing out every single animal.
Precisely. This whole vision fundamentally aspires to move beyond sustainability as just causing less harm or maintaining the status quo. The goal is for humans to reintegrate themselves, to live as fully integrated participants in nature's cycles. actively contributing positively to the health and vitality of the ecosystem around them.
It's a radical reimagining, really, moving from being separate from nature to being part of nature.
That's it, exactly.
And this isn't some brand new modern invention, is it? It feels like it has deeper roots, philosophical, historical.
Absolutely, it does.
When we talk about these conceptual foundations, one name immediately springs to mind for me: Aldo Leopold.
Yes.
He really crystallized this profound idea of land as community, not commodity.
Yeah.
His famous land ethic states that a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise.
A powerful statement.
That quote, that entire idea, it feels like such a profound departure from the anthropocentric, the human-centric views that have dominated Western thought for so long. What makes Leopold's ethic so transformative, and why is it, well, frankly, so challenging for many of us to truly embrace?
It's truly profound because it demands a complete reevaluation of our moral compass and our perceived hierarchy in the natural world. Unlike traditional development models that for centuries have placed human needs and desires at the absolute center.
Seeing nature as just resources for us.
Pretty much. Viewing nature primarily as a collection of resources for human use. Leopold's land ethic considers humans as merely participants within a vast, complex, interconnected web of life.
Just one part of the whole.
Exactly. This framework inherently assigns a moral responsibility, an ethical duty, to what he termed other than human kin. It shifts the focus dramatically from what can the land do for us to how can we contribute to the health, integrity, and beauty of the entire biotic community.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And the challenge in embracing this lies in our deeply ingrained cultural narratives of dominion over nature, and of course the economic systems built upon those narratives. It requires a humility that many find difficult, a letting go of the idea of absolute control, which raises an important question for you, the listener. How does your understanding of property or ownership fundamentally change when you start to view land not just as a parcel of real estate with defined boundaries and a monetary value, but as a living, breathing, interconnected community with its own inherent value and its own rights to thrive?
That's incredibly powerful, and it connects directly to this idea of reciprocal contributions, doesn't it? It's not just about us being good stewards, avoiding harm. It's about a dynamic, active, two-way street, right? A give and take with the land.
That's exactly right.
Can you elaborate on what that two-way street looks like in practical terms for a family living this way?
Yeah, the reciprocal contributions concept is a really vital conceptual intervention. It directly challenges that notion of humans as just external managers or consumers of nature.
Right.
It asserts that positive feedback loops between people and nature can, and really should, accrue benefits to both directly and indirectly, creating a genuinely virtuous cycle.
So it's not just theoretical.
Not at all. It can manifest powerfully at the household level within communities, and it can even influence national and global ecological health. For a family, this means your deliberate actions, like, say, restoring a degraded patch of your land by planting native species.
Or managing water differently.
Exactly. Managing water flows to replenish local aquifers. Or cultivating rich, healthy soil through composting. These actions literally give back to the environment. They can foster increased biodiversity, improve water quality, help mitigate climate impacts, and enhance the overall health of the ecosystem.
And then the land gives back to the family.
Precisely. In turn, these healthier ecosystems provide an abundance of clean water, thriving wildlife, fertile soil for food, and a more resilient environment for your family to live within. The land literally thrives because of your presence, and you thrive because the land is healthy. It becomes a true symbiotic partnership.
Okay, so we've established this incredible philosophical and ethical foundation for a harmonious life. It's inspiring. But for a family of 5, living this way has to be practical, right? Achievable day to day.
Absolutely.
It can't just be a beautiful ideal that's disconnected from the realities of rural life, the economics, the social side. How do we transition from these grand concepts to the nuts and bolts of daily living, ensuring economic and social viability alongside ecological regeneration?
That's exactly where socio-ecological models and established rural livelihood frameworks become indispensable. This vision isn't just philosophical, it absolutely requires the deep integration of social equity, environmental health, and economic sustainability. The Sustainable Livelihoods Framework, for instance, which is widely used in development studies, characterizes viability as a dynamic function of 5 key capital assets.
5 key assets, what are they?
Right. There's natural capital, that's your land, water, forests, biodiversity, Then physical capital infrastructure, tools, housing, financial capital savings, income, access to credit, human capital skills, knowledge, labor, health. And finally, social capital, which is all about networks, community support, reciprocal relationships.
So it's a holistic view.
Very much so. When a family strategically manages and invests in all these assets, they enable profound resilience, the ability to adapt to changing conditions, and overall well-being, all without undermining the resource base for future generations. It provides a really useful, holistic lens for planning.
So it's about having the right resources, land, tools, money, but just as importantly, it's about having the right skills and community connections to manage them effectively and adapt over time.
Precisely. And the research, particularly looking at rural, low-income families trying to build resilient livelihoods, consistently highlights the critical importance of that deep, ongoing observation we talked about and continuous adaptation, adapting to both environmental and socioeconomic constraints.
So managing daily needs, but also preparing for shocks.
Exactly. This includes not just managing for daily needs, but effectively preparing for and responding to stress and shocks, whether those are climatic events like droughts or floods, or economic downturns, or even personal health challenges. Crucially, it emphasizes maintaining an ecological buffer.
An ecological buffer, like a safety net.
Kind of, a sort of built-in natural resilience within their land and systems. This buffer, often achieved through diverse ecosystems and having redundant systems like multiple water sources, allows the homestead to absorb unexpected pressures without catastrophic failure. It provides an inherent capacity for recovery and continued function.
That makes sense.
And this whole framework connects directly to your everyday decision-making, even if you're not planning a move to the countryside right now. It's about being observant of your environment, understanding its limits, diversifying your assets, whatever they may be, and building adaptability into every aspect of your plans.
So what does this all mean for the actual structure, the house you'd live in? Forget conventional construction, right? With all its concrete, drywall, high energy bills.
Right, if you're going to live with nature.
Your home needs to be a seamless extension of that philosophy. Our sources really highlight approaches like earthship homes and other natural building methods. They seem like incredibly tangible expressions of this integrative design, like they're designed to actually breathe with the land.
They absolutely are. Earthship homes, pioneered by architect Michael Reynolds, and similar natural dwellings, are fundamentally designed to minimize their environmental footprint, from their very inception, how they're built, to their daily operation.
And they use unusual materials.
Often, yes. They frequently utilize a remarkable array of recycled and repurposed materials, things like discarded automobile tires packed with earth, glass bottles, aluminum cans, alongside abundant, locally sourced materials such as rammed earth, straw bale, even clay or adobe.
Wow.
The whole intent is to construct passively heated and cooled, typically off-grid structures that don't just sit on the land, but literally blend with its natural contours. They're designed to actively preserve, sometimes even enhance, ecological functions on the site, integrating with the surrounding ecosystem.
And the result is less impact.
Drastically less. This approach drastically reduces the energy, water, and overall ecological footprint of rural living, often by 70–90% compared to conventional homes. Imagine a home that truly generates its own energy, collects its own water, and processes its own waste. It's a game changer.
So these aren't just quirky alternative homes. They're fundamentally engineered for efficiency, resilience, and integration with the environment. Can you walk us through some of those core design features? How do they actually work day to day to achieve this harmony?
Certainly. One really key feature is thermal mass walls.
Thermal mass? What's that?
Think thick, dense walls, often made from compacted earth rammed inside old tires, or layers of rammed earth, stone, or adobe. They function like giant batteries for temperature. They absorb heat slowly during the day from the sun, or internal sources like cooking, and then release that heat slowly at night, or the reverse in summer, absorbing heat from inside and releasing it outwards at night.
So they regulate the temperature naturally.
Exactly. This passive regulation effectively minimizes, or sometimes even completely eliminates, the need for artificial climate control heating or air conditioning. Imagine your home staying comfortably cool in the peak of summer and cozy warm in the dead of winter, all without a massive energy bill, just relying on the physics of stored energy in the walls.
And they use the sun too, right? Not just for light, but for heat.
Oh, absolutely. Passive solar orientation is another critical element. This involves precisely siting the structure where you place it on the land and strategically placing large, often floor-to-ceiling, south-facing windows in the northern hemisphere.
Why south-facing?
To maximize sunlight exposure during the lower arc of the winter sun, this provides abundant warmth and natural light, dramatically reducing heating needs. Conversely, they incorporate precisely calculated overhangs or shading devices.
Like awnings or roof extensions.
Exactly. Those effectively block the high summer sun, preventing overheating when it's unwelcome. It's about intelligently leveraging the sun's predictable natural patterns throughout the year, literally designing with the sun as a partner.
And water autonomy, that's huge for off-grid living. How do these homes manage water independently without relying on external pipes?
Yeah, water's key. They often feature sophisticated rainwater harvesting roofs. These are designed to capture pretty much every drop of precipitation that falls onto the structure.
And then what happens to it?
This water is then directed through a multi-stage filtration system, often including sediment filters, maybe carbon filters, and sometimes UV purification to make it safe for potable use drinking water.
Where is it stored?
It's stored in large cisterns, often underground or integrated into the building structure itself. And crucially, any overflow from these cisterns isn't wasted.
No.
No. It's typically directed to landscape irrigation, maybe to feed those gray water systems we'll talk about, or even to dedicated wildlife troughs, ensuring basically no water is lost from the site. Picture your family's entire water needs drinking, bathing, gardening being met entirely by the sky, filtered and delivered right to your tap. It's a powerful shift away from relying on municipal systems or energy-intensive wells.
And what about household waste? Specifically wastewater, gray water from sinks and showers, and black water from toilets. That's often a big concern for off-grid living, especially thinking about public health and environmental impact.
Absolutely critical. And that's where composting toilets and comprehensive gray water systems become integral to closing the nutrient and water loops right there on site.
Composting toilets, how do those work safely?
They're designed to safely and effectively break down human waste using aerobic decomposition, transforming it into nutrient-rich, pathogen-free compost over time. This compost can then be used to fertilize non-edible plants, like fruit trees or ornamental gardens. It's a method that's been successfully used and refined in various eco-villages for decades.
Okay, and gray water.
Right.
Water from showers and sinks.
Right. Gray water systems take that water, which is non-potable but isn't heavily contaminated like black water, and filter it, often through simple sand or gravel filters, sometimes reed beds. Then it's typically used for immediate subsurface irrigation of non-edible plants, or sometimes even filtered further for things like toilet flushing.
So it gets reused right away.
Exactly. These systems are crucial for recycling precious nutrients and water right on the homestead. They effectively close the loop on a significant portion of household waste, greatly reducing the demand on external water sources and eliminating the need for conventional wastewater treatment plants or septic systems.
It makes you think, how much water does my household currently use? And how much of that could realistically be recycled and repurposed within my own system if I were to adopt these approaches?
The numbers can be quite staggering when you look into it. It really highlights the potential.
So it's a truly holistic, interconnected approach. Every element serves multiple purposes. But are these designs rigid, like a one-size-fits-all model? Or can they truly be adapted to different climates and family needs?
That's a key strength. They are surprisingly adaptable. Our sources highlight that Earthship designs, for instance, can be precisely tailored. They adapt to local climate conditions, whether you're in an arid desert, a temperate forest, or the humid tropics.
And available material.
Yes, adapted to the specific types of recycled and natural resources available in a particular region. And of course, tailored to the unique size and needs of the family living there. We see examples of these resilient off-grid projects thriving everywhere, from the cold deserts of Taos, New Mexico, to the temperate climates of France, and even the humid tropics of Belize. It demonstrates their remarkable flexibility and global applicability.
It's clear that it's not just about what you build, but maybe even more crucially, where and how you place it on the land. Our sources talk about this principle I find truly remarkable, observing for 5 years before even putting a shovel in the ground to design.
Yeah, that one gets people's attention.
That's an incredible level of patience and intentionality, something most of us in modern society never even consider. What exactly does that 5-year observation period entail? What are the most significant insights a family gains during that extensive time?
That 5-year observation period is deeply aligned with permaculture's core ethic of observe and interact, specifically advocating for slow, thoughtful planning. It's really about truly understanding the land's inherent patterns, its character, its unique microclimates, its existing ecological relationships, before you make any significant interventions.
Because what are you actually watching for?
During this period, a family would meticulously document phenomena, tracking the sun's path across the sky hour by hour, season by season, mapping prevailing wind patterns and their effects. Where does snow drift? Where are the calm spots? Analyzing soil composition and drainage across different zones of the property. And most importantly, understanding the local hydrology, how water moves across and through the land. Where does it collect naturally? Where does it flow during heavy rains?
And watching the plants and animals, too.
Absolutely. Observing native plant communities, noting which species thrive where. Watching animal species, their paths, their feeding habits, their nesting sites. The insights gained are profound. You learn where natural windbreaks already exist or should be planted, where water naturally congregates for efficient harvesting, which areas receive optimal sunlight for food production at different times of year, and how to integrate your structures seamlessly into the existing ecology rather than just imposing on it.
So the goal is harmony from this stuff.
Exactly. This ensures the dwelling and its surrounding landscape are in sync with their environment, making the most of natural advantages and mitigating potential challenges. It leads to designs that feel like they truly belong to the site, like they grew there.
That makes so much sense. So once you've done that deep observation, can you give us some examples of what that kind of ecological landscaping looks like in practice? Beyond just the house itself, how does the entire property become a functioning ecosystem?
Certainly. Edible landscaping is a prime example of this multifunctional design. Instead of just a sterile lawn or a separate fenced-off vegetable garden.
What is a typical setup?
You design integrated systems. Things like food forests, which mimic natural forest layers with fruit and nut trees, berry bushes, perennial vegetables, herbs, and ground covers all growing together. Perennial polycultures, mixtures of long-lived plants, berry patches integrated near pathways.
So it's food, but also habitat.
Exactly. These aren't just for human consumption. They're strategically chosen and placed to actively support local wildlife and pollinators. They become a vital part of the broader ecosystem. Plus, these diverse plantings build soil health naturally, conserve water better than annual beds, and generally require less ongoing maintenance than traditional monoculture gardens once established.
Okay, what else?
Then there are features like rain gardens. These are specifically designed depressions or shallow basins in the landscape, filled with water-tolerant native plants.
Where would you put those?
They're strategically placed to capture stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces like roofs, driveways, or compacted areas. They slow the water down, allow it to soak into the ground slowly, and the plants and soil filter pollutants from the water.
So they prevent erosion and recharge groundwater.
Precisely. All while creating crucial microhabitats for amphibians, beneficial insects, birds, and other small creatures. And a classic example, rooted in centuries of wisdom, is the use of natural windbreaks.
Like planting trees?
Yes, but often more sophisticated than just a single row. The Fukugi homestead windbreaks in Okinawa, Japan, are a perfect case study. These are multi-layered vegetation barriers, often composed of several rows of specific evergreen trees like Garcinia subelliptica.
What do they do?
They provide critical typhoon protection for homes and crops in that region, but they also offer essential wildlife habitat, contribute significantly to local biodiversity, and are deeply intertwined with the area's cultural identity. It shows how every element you integrate into your homestead can, and really should, serve multiple purposes, providing synergistic benefits to you, your family, and the surrounding environment simultaneously.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit and talk about water again. It's not just life, it's the most fundamental, irreplaceable resource. But in this harmonious vision, how do you manage to get enough water, not just for your family of 5, but for the local ecosystem? And critically, how do you share it ethically with local wildlife without depleting the source or, creating conflict?
The approach shifts fundamentally from extraction and control to integration and abundance, based on that deep observation of natural water flow and animal movement patterns over seasons.
That observation again.
Always. A rural family can meticulously design and set up modular rainwater harvesting systems. These can capture thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of gallons annually, depending on the climate and roof area. And these systems are thoughtfully designed not just for the humans.
How so?
They're designed to serve the family's household needs, provide for garden irrigation, and importantly, ensure plentiful, spatially distributed water for wildlife.
So it's not just about collecting for personal human use, but actively designing for distribution and sharing with all inhabitants of the land. That really is a significant mindset shift.
It really is. The methods include those sophisticated roof-to-cistern systems we talked about, with multi-stage filtration sediment filters, UV purifiers for potable and non-potable uses. These systems also incorporate robust overflow management.
So excess water isn't wasted.
Right. It's often directed to vegetated swales or natural ponds, or maybe recirculated to dedicated wildlife troughs placed away from the house and used for broader landscape irrigation. Imagine your homestead becoming a true water hub, not just for your family, but for deer, birds, foxes, countless other creatures, transforming a resource into shared abundance.
That's a beautiful image. What about beyond the immediate house area?
Beyond your dwelling, wildlife guzzlers offer a compelling model for landscape-scale water provisioning, especially in drier areas.
Belarus.
Yeah, examples like the Black Gap and Elephant Mountain systems in the Trans-Pecos region of Texas. These are carefully engineered structures, often low profile, designed to collect and store rainwater, then make it available to wildlife through a controlled access point.
How are they designed to avoid problems?
Their design allows for the spatial distribution of water sources across a larger landscape. This supports both large and small mammals while carefully preserving habitat integrity. The spacing is meticulously considered, often one source per 80 to maybe 640 acres, depending on the target species and local ecology, to avoid over-concentrating animals in one spot, which can degrade the habitat.
Right, you don't want to create an artificial bottleneck.
Exactly. It raises an important question for you, the listener. How can your actions, even on a smarter scale, create abundance and support the well-being of more than just humans in your immediate environment? Even a bird bath makes a difference.
It sounds like a beautifully intricate system, truly thinking like an ecosystem thinks. And what about managing the water once it's on the land, beyond just storing it in cisterns? How do you ensure it's integrated into the soil and landscape effectively?
That's where ecological water management comes in, utilizing living infrastructure. This involved carefully shaping the landscape with natural features. Things like earth-sculpted ponds, maybe contour swales, those shallow, often meandering channels built on contour lines to slow, spread, and sink water into the soil. And sometimes rock-lined channels to direct flow sustainably in high-flow areas.
And the goal is to slow the water down.
Yes, slow it, spread it, sink it. These features are specifically engineered to slow water down, allowing it to percolate deep into the ground. This replenishes underground aquifers, prevents erosion, reduces flooding downstream, and simultaneously creates new, diverse microhabitats for a whole variety of species: amphibians, dragonflies, water-loving plants.
Are there real-world examples?
Oh yes. Sustainable homesteads in places like Costa Rica, with its intense rainy season, and temperate North Carolina, have successfully implemented these methods for years, demonstrating their adaptability across different climates. Furthermore, even modern elements like modular underground storage tanks or features compliant with LD standards, those green building benchmarks can be adapted to manage stormwater effectively, enhance on-site water cycles, and even serve as educational tools for visitors and neighbors, fostering broader ecological literacy.
Now let's talk about turning what most people consider waste into absolute wealth, specifically soil wealth. This is really about closing the loop, isn't it? Nothing leaves the system if it can be repurposed ethically and beneficially. It feels like a fundamental tenet of a regenerative approach.
Precisely. Natural composting is absolutely central to closing the nutrient cycle in an ethical, regenerative way. Our sources highlight several sophisticated methods, all designed to transform organic waste, food scraps, garden trimmings, even humanure, into a valuable resource that continually enriches the land rather than depleting it.
What are the main methods a family of 5 could realistically use to manage all their organic waste? Seems like it would be a lot.
You have several really effective options. Firstly, there's hot composting. By carefully managing the mix, adhering to guidelines from agencies like the EPA and USDA for proper carbon to nitrogen ratios, moisture content, and aeration.
Getting the mix right is key.
Crucial for hot composting. If you do it right, you can produce rapid pathogen and weed seed-free compost in as little as 2 to 6 weeks. It's a more intensive method, requires turning and monitoring, but it's highly efficient for generating large volumes of high-quality compost quickly.
Okay, what if you want something less intensive?
Then there's cold or static pile composting, and also vermiculture, which is composting with worms. These are lower maintenance, longer term approaches that still effectively break down organic matter into rich humus. Cold composting simply involves building a pile of organic matter and letting nature, fungi, and bacteria do the work over several months or even a year. Vermiculture harnesses the incredible digestive power of specific worm species, like red wigglers in bins or beds, to create incredibly nutrient-dense worm castings, often called black gold by gardeners.
Okay, and then the big one, human waste.
And then, perhaps the most impactful from a purely closed-loop perspective are human manure systems, like those successfully implemented and refined over decades at communities such as Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Missouri.
How do they work? Safely.
Yes, safely. These systems involve collecting human waste, usually mixed with a carbon-rich cover material like sawdust, in special composting toilets or bins. Then it undergoes a long, carefully managed thermophilic compost process that reliably destroys pathogens. The end result is a rich, fertile soil amendment.
And the benefits.
Huge. It dramatically reduces reliance on centralized, energy-intensive wastewater treatment plants. It virtually eliminates the need for chemical fertilizers on the homestead because you're recycling those nutrients. And it significantly cuts down on greenhouse gas emissions associated with conventional sewage systems. This is often a powerful aha moment for people.
Realizing waste isn't waste.
Exactly. Realizing that even your own bodily waste can be a vital, life-giving resource, actively feeding the very soil that in turn feeds you and your family. It shifts a perceived problem into a profound opportunity for regeneration.
So it's not just about getting rid of waste, it's actively building up the land's health and fertility. That's a massive shift from our typical linear take, make, dispose model to a truly circular, regenerative one.
Exactly. By systematically integrating composting, all forms of composting, with practices like sheet mulching.
Sheet mulching, like lasagna gardening. Sort of, yeah. Layering organic materials like cardboard, compost, manure, straw directly onto the soil surface to suppress weeds and build soil. Combining that with no-till gardening, which avoids disturbing the complex soil ecosystem, and using green manures, cover crops like clover or rye that are grown and then tilled back into the soil to add organic matter and nutrients.
You get better soil.
Dramatically better soil. Families doing this can significantly improve soil carbon content, boost fertility naturally, enhance water retention so the land is more drought resilient, and facilitate the establishment and thriving of native plants. These are all vital steps for broader ecosystem restoration and building deep climate resilience right there around your home.
Are there larger examples? Absolutely. Our sources point to remarkable success in forest land restoration projects in places like Washington, Colorado, and Oregon. Using compost-amended soils has been shown to promote rapid plant growth, significantly reduce runoff and erosion on degraded slopes, and support a healthier microbial and faunal diversity both below and above ground. It truly is about creating a living, breathing, self-regulating soil system, teeming with life and capable of sequestering significant amounts of carbon.
And how does a family know if all this effort is actually working? Is there a way to measure the impact of these regenerative practices? You can't just guess, right?
No, you can't just guess. Monitoring is crucial for that adaptive management piece and for continuous improvement. It involves regularly assessing various aspects of soil health, looking at specific factors like carbon to nitrogen ratios, organic matter content, water infiltration rates, how quickly water soaks in, and also observing shifts in native plant and fungal communities. Are you seeing more diversity?
And beyond the soil.
Beyond soil. Monitoring extends to things like water quality in nearby streams or ponds, the presence and diversity of pollinators, bees, butterflies, and maybe doing annual bird counts. This quantitative and qualitative data ensures that your regenerative aims are actually being met, and it allows the family to make informed adjustments to their practices over time, ensuring they're always learning and responding effectively to the land.
Okay, this next topic is where the harmony with nature philosophy really gets tested by daily reality, I think. It's not about fighting nature or eradicating perceived threats, it's about dancing with it. So what do you do when the squirrels decide your tomatoes are their tomatoes? Or ants start marching through your kitchen looking for sugar? The traditional response is often immediate eradication with chemicals, but this approach sounds fundamentally different.
It's a fundamental paradigm shift, absolutely. Rather than viewing native species like ants, squirrels, birds, even deer as pests to be automatically eradicated.
Right, the enemy.
This approach actively promotes coexistence and adaptive management. And the very first step, again, is deep observation and understanding.
Observe the pest.
Yes. Instead of immediately reaching for a spray bottle or a trap, you pause. You observe the patterns. For example, precisely where and why are the ants trailing? What are they seeking? How are the squirrels actually getting into your garden? This deep observation fosters nuanced, nature-based solutions that work with the ecosystem, not against it. You become a detective, seeking the ecological root cause of the issue, rather than just reacting to a symptom.
So it's about understanding why they're there and what their role might be, rather than just getting rid of them. That sounds incredibly patient, maybe difficult for some people.
It can be, initially, but exactly. This understanding then leads to implementing solutions, like using non-toxic physical and scent deterrents. Natural substances like diluted vinegar, specific essential oils that ants dislike, or diatomaceous earth can disrupt ant trails. Physical barriers like row covers or netting can protect specific crops. These methods create boundaries or make areas less appealing without harming non-target species or the beneficial soil organisms crucial to your healthy ecosystem. It's about gently redirecting or creating boundaries, not widespread destruction.
Okay, and beyond deterrence.
Then there's the whole suite of permaculture pest control strategies, which are about promoting ecological balance proactively. This includes things like companion planting basil near tomatoes is a classic example, said to deter some pests, actively enhancing natural habitat for beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings, and for birds that eat insects. Using intelligent crop rotation year after year to break pest and disease cycles in the soil, and using cover crops to improve soil health and suppress weeds, which often harbor pests.
So it's about building a resilient system.
Exactly. All of these strategies promote a healthy, diverse ecosystem where harmful pest outbreaks are far less likely to occur in the first place, because natural predators and ecological functions are robust and in balance. You become a diligent steward, seeking balance, rather than an agent constantly battling nature.
And it sounds like this extends beyond just insects or small mammals to a broader, more profound relationship with all wildlife, not just those we might label pests.
Absolutely. This concept of reciprocal wildlife integration is really key to living in deep harmony. It builds directly on the millennia of wisdom from many indigenous cultures, like dryland farmers, who have always acknowledged wildlife as rightful co-inhabitants of the land with an inherent right to access resources.
So actively welcoming wildlife.
In a sense, yes. It's about consciously designing your homestead to support, rather than solely deter, local fauna, recognizing them as integral members of the biot community. Key strategies include establishing habitat corridors, maybe strips of native vegetation connecting larger wild areas, allowing wildlife to move safely across your property, installing nest boxes for various bird species, bats, even beneficial insects, and strategically placing those wildlife guzzlers or troughs we mentioned earlier to provide water sources, particularly in arid regions.
But carefully, right?
Absolutely carefully. The crucial part is that these features are designed and placed to facilitate natural movement and hydration without creating dependency or conflict with your own needs, like your main garden beds, and without concentrating animals in a way that might degrade the habitat or increase disease transmission. It's always about designing for shared abundance and balance.
So if you're growing food for your family, how do you manage that without having local animals consume your entire harvest? Do you just accept huge losses? That seems tough economically.
This is where the powerful concept of overplanting comes into play. It's a practice deeply embedded in many indigenous agricultural traditions.
Overplanting, just plant extra.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
As beautifully practiced by, for example, Hopi and Menominee land stewards, you establish your food forest and gardens with the explicit intention of growing enough for everyone. Enough for your human family, yes, but also consciously planting enough for the worms that build your soil, the beneficial insects, the rabbits, the birds, the deer, and other creatures that share the land.
Wow.
The philosophy is fundamentally about planting enough for all, and cultivating a mindset of gratitude and reciprocity for your harvests, rather than viewing any creature that partakes as an enemy or a pest to be fought or eliminated. It's a radical shift from a mindset of scarcity and defense to one of abundance and sharing.
How does it work practically?
By ensuring ample resources are available for all, you naturally reduce conflict and foster a more balanced ecosystem. The deer might nibble some outer leaves, but if there's plenty else for them to eat, they might leave your main crops alone. It raises an important question for you, the listener. If abundance is the goal, how can it be genuinely shared widely rather than hoarded or defended? It's a profound shift in mindset from competition against nature to collaboration with nature.
Living this way, practicing this deep harmony with nature, it isn't just about personal choice or individual actions on a specific homestead, is it? It feels like it connects to much bigger ideas about our collective responsibility to the planet, and surprisingly, even to evolving legal frameworks. It's not just a private endeavor walled off from the world.
That's an absolutely crucial point. This is where individual actions and ethics ripple outwards to influence larger societal norms and even governance structures. Formal frameworks like the American Society of Landscape Architects, ASLA, Code of Environmental Ethics, provide a valuable professional blueprint for this broader responsibility.
What do those codes emphasize?
These codes uphold principles like the inherent value of the environment itself, recognizing that ecosystems have worth beyond just their utility to humans. They emphasize the inclusion of all stakeholders, human and non-human, in decision-making processes that affect the land. They talk about upholding the rights of future generations to a healthy planet, and they demand the alignment of ecological health with social equity and economic prosperity.
So it connects back to Leopold.
Absolutely. These principles deeply echo Leopold's land ethic, which we discussed earlier. And they're also powerfully reflected in the evolving biocultural ethic, championed particularly in Latin America and within indigenous movements globally. In these contexts, concepts like reciprocity, relational values, understanding our relationships with all beings, and land tenure justice are absolutely central to truly sustainable and ethical stewardship. It's about recognizing the cultural and spiritual dimensions of our relationship with land, not just the scientific or economic aspects.
And this isn't some niche New Age thinking, as some might dismiss it. It's often a profound rediscovery and recentering of ancient wisdom, right? Indigenous communities, in particular, have been living in deep harmony with their lands for millennia. Can you tell us more about those proven stewardship practices? They sound foundational.
Yes, indigenous stewardship practices are incredibly well documented, profoundly effective, and offer powerful blueprints for resilience and sustainability. We're talking about time-tested methods like dryland farming, where crops are grown successfully without artificial irrigation, relying solely on natural rainfall and an incredibly deep understanding of local water cycles, microclimates, and soil properties. Think of the ancient terrace farms of the Andes, or the traditional corn, beans, and squash fields of the American Southwest.
What else? Fire.
Yes, controlled burning or cultural burning. This mimics natural fire cycles to promote ecosystem health, reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires by clearing underbrush, encourage the growth of specific native plants that are fire adapted, and improve habitat for certain animals. It's using fire as a sophisticated tool for ecological regeneration, not just suppression.
And farming techniques.
We also see widespread use of no-till, or minimal-till agriculture, which avoids deep plowing to minimize soil disturbance, maintain complex soil structures, preserve microbial life, and prevent erosion. And sophisticated rotational systems for both crops and grazing animals that allow land to rest and recover, letting nutrients cycle naturally.
And it's often tied to spirituality.
Crucially, yes. These practices are often deeply intertwined with a profound spiritual engagement with the land, recognizing the sacredness and sentience of the natural world, mountains, rivers, animals, plants. These integrated approaches have, for centuries, maintained or actively enhanced ecosystems, while simultaneously supporting community well-being and biocultural integrity. They highlight over and over that human thriving is absolutely inextricably linked to ecosystem health.
And these ideas aren't just staying in the realm of culture or spirituality, they're actually gaining legal traction too, aren't they? It seems like governments and legal systems are slowly, maybe too slowly, but starting to acknowledge these deeper relationships.
They absolutely are, which is a significant and genuinely hopeful development. Legal frameworks are increasingly recognizing indigenous land rights and, even more broadly, the inherent rights of nature, which is a powerful conceptual leap towards more ethical stewardship globally.
Can you give some specific examples?
Sure. In Canada, there's Dailies Nine, a vast national park reserve in the Northwest Territories, spanning over 26,000 square kilometers. It's co-managed by the Utsil-Khadean First Nation and the Canadian government, based on principles of traditional ecological knowledge. It's a powerful model for collaborative conservation.
And rights of nature.
Ecuador and Bolivia have gone so far as to include rights of nature provisions directly in their national constitutions. This legally recognizes ecosystems, rivers, forests, mountains as having inherent rights, similar to human rights, to exist, persist, regenerate, and flourish. This means environmental damage could potentially be litigated not just as harm to human interests, but as a violation of nature's own rights.
Wow. Any U.S. examples?
Closer to home in the U.S., while not as constitutionally bold yet, states like Texas have wildlife tax valuation laws. These incentivize habitat preservation on private lands by offering significant property tax reductions for landowners who actively manage their land primarily for wildlife conservation rather than traditional agriculture or development. It shows that even within existing economic frameworks, incentives can be created.
So these profound ideas are definitely moving from the purely philosophical realm into tangible governmental policy and legal precedent.
Exactly. Offering new pathways, new tools for protection and regeneration.
You might be listening to all this and thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, almost too good to be true, but can my family really do it alone? It sounds like a massive undertaking.
That's a very valid question.
And the answer, as our sources strongly suggest, is that while individual families can make a huge difference, this kind of integrated, harmonious living often thrives most powerfully within a supportive community, and that community can take many different forms.
Exactly. Eco-villages and co-housing communities are perhaps the most visible, living examples of this principle. They really embody the idea that living in harmony with nature is both a profound individual commitment and a deeply collective endeavor. Communities like Dancing Rabbit in Missouri, Earth Haven in North Carolina, Avalon Organic Gardens in Arizona, Roots Eco Village in Texas here in North America.
And globally, too.
Oh, yes. Alongside well-known global projects like Findhorn in Scotland or Siebenlinden in Germany. These places illustrate beautifully how collective intentionality, shared resources, and mutual support can amplify individual efforts and create a far more resilient and regenerative lifestyle than most could achieve alone.
How do these communities actually function on a daily basis? What are some of their shared principles? What are the benefits that draw people to live this way together?
They often revolve around extensive shared resources. This can include communally owned land for agriculture or conservation, shared gardens, tool libraries, maybe car sharing programs, workshops, and sometimes even shared kitchen and dining facilities.
What's the benefit of sharing?
It dramatically reduces individual burden. You don't all need to own a tractor or industrial-sized tools. It minimizes overall resource consumption for the group. And it fosters deep cooperation and economic efficiency. Their decision-making processes are also usually quite different from mainstream society.
How so?
They're typically highly collaborative, often using consensus-based models where everyone have a voice and decisions aren't made until everyone agrees or consents, or perhaps tiered committee structures for specific issues. There's usually a strong emphasis on diverse, gender-inclusive governance and trying to maintain non-hierarchical organizational structures.
So the process reflects the values.
Exactly. This ensures that the management of the land and the community itself aligns deeply with their ethical principles, including social justice. For example, Earth Haven Eco Village, as I mentioned, is not only committed to ecological regeneration, but also to actively working alongside the Cherokee and Catawba peoples on whose unceded land they reside, integrating native stewardship insights and fostering racial and social equity within their community structures.
And the benefits for residents.
Profound. Reduced costs of living, certainly. Increased social connection and less isolation. A shared workload for big projects, access to a diverse pool of skills and knowledge within the community, and of course an amplified positive environmental impact.
So you don't necessarily have to move to a massive established eco-village, right? That might feel overwhelming. Can individual families make a significant difference on a smaller scale, perhaps inspiring others around them?
Absolutely. Our sources definitely point to rural family-led and micro-community projects as incredibly significant catalysts for change. Individual homesteads, like that example of Paul's family homestead in Costa Rica, or specific projects highlighted in North Carolina, can become powerful centers for peer-to-peer learning. Simply by existing, by doing the work, and by openly sharing their practices and their challenges with neighbors or visitors, they become hubs for local knowledge exchange and can help build bioregional resilience. Small family farms, especially when networked with neighboring properties and maybe supported by local conservation agencies or nonprofits, can collectively become incredible biodiversity hotspots. They can create corridors for wildlife movement and share best practices for soil health and water management across a wider landscape.
So your family could be a starting point.
Exactly. No, you don't have to start an entire eco-village from scratch. Your family could be the nucleus of a burgeoning, harmonious network, inspiring others by example and contributing to a larger regenerative movement right where you are.
Let's zoom in now on some of these incredible real-world examples that truly bring these concepts to life, make them feel tangible. First up, Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Missouri. This sounds like a place that has been living these principles for a long, long time, offering a powerful blueprint.
Indeed, Dancing Rabbit is remarkable. Over 25 plus years, they've transformed their 280 acres in rural northeastern Missouri. It was degraded monoculture landscape, mostly corn and soy fields when they started.
And now?
Now it's a thriving restored prairie with diverse wildlife habitat alongside their homes and gardens. Their practices are a really tangible demonstration of deep integration and systemic thinking. For instance, their rainwater catchment systems provide an astonishing 76% of their residents' total water needs. Municipal water is only used as a very minimal backup for rare peak periods or extended droughts.
And waste.
They utilize those sophisticated on-site composting toilets we discussed, safely reclaiming all human, transforming it to nutrient-rich soil amendment used on non-edible crops around the village.
Energy.
Their renewable energy systems, primarily solar photovoltaic arrays, but also some wind turbines, are so efficient that the community as a whole actually exports more energy back to the grid annually than it consumes. They're net positive on energy.
That's incredible. What about wildlife? They've meticulously set aside significant portions of their land, a land trust model, specifically for undisturbed wildlife habitat, actively emphasizing coexistence and the non-displacement of their non-human residents. And their governance is highly participatory, designed to scale as the population grows using inclusive language. Decisions are systematically handled by specialized committees, ensuring broad community engagement and shared responsibility.
Wow. It paints a vivid, inspiring picture of what your family could aspire to. It shows it's not just possible, but demonstrably successful and thriving over decades.
It really does.
Okay, just a bit further east geographically, Earth Haven Eco Village in North Carolina builds on similar principles, but maybe with its own unique characteristics and priorities, particularly around social equity. Yes, Earth Haven, located on roughly 330 acres in the mountains of western North Carolina, consciously and publicly recognizes its location on unceded Cherokee and Catawba land. This acknowledgement wasn't just symbolic, it underpins their profound commitment to equity, including racial and gender equality, which they strive to interweave into all aspects of their land and community management.
So ecology and social justice are linked.
Explicitly linked. They integrate truly sustainable agriculture, run shared ecological businesses, implement robust water catchment systems, engage in comprehensive composting, and practice restorative forest management, including selective logging based on ecological principles and active replanting to enhance forest health and biodiversity. It's a holistic approach that acknowledges and actively addresses both ecological regeneration and deep social justice as interdependent pillars of true harmony. They are living proof that sustainability extends far beyond just environmental concerns to include our human relationships and grappling with historical justice.
And shifting across the globe, indigenous traditions offer such invaluable lessons, demonstrating these deep reciprocal relationships with nature that have sustained communities for centuries, sometimes millennia. Let's look at the Puenche people in Chile and Argentina and those Patagonian fish ponds you mentioned earlier.
These are profound, enduring examples of biocultural wisdom in action. The Puenche people practice what they call reciprocal harvesting and engage in profound land defense in the ancient Puan forests. Those are the Araucaria or monkey puzzle trees, which are sacred to them. Their entire sustenance, culture, and spirituality are intrinsically linked to these unique forests. And through respectful cyclical interactions, harvesting nuts, managing the understory, they sustain both their communities and the ancient forests themselves.
And the fish ponds in Patagonia.
In Patagonia, Mapuche communities have maintained communal fish ponds, often using natural landscape features for generations. These intricately managed ponds don't just provide a sustainable food source, they actively support significant biodiversity by creating diverse aquatic habitats for fish, amphibians, insects, and birds. And they also serve vital ceremonial and dietary needs for the communities.
What's the underlying principle?
In both cases, the underlying principles are incredibly powerful and consistent. A deep practice of asking permission from the land and its spirits before harvesting. A commitment to sharing resources widely among the community, not hoarding. And upholding a profound sense of place and kinship, a feeling of being related to the land, the water, and all living beings. This highlights a powerful spiritual connection that goes way beyond mere resource management, a connection that you could perhaps cultivate in your own relationship with your environment, wherever you are.
And a perfect example of a more recent family-led project comes from Costa Rica, Paul's family homestead. This really
prone to erosion during heavy rains.
How do they manage that?
Their innovative design, using things like terracing, swales, and extensive planting, actively stabilizes the land. It protects sensitive creeks on the property that feed into larger water systems downstream. And it integrates multi-tiered water harvesting with extensive, diverse tree planting, fruit trees, timber trees, nitrogen-fixing trees.
Serving multiple functions again.
Always. These trees provide food for the family, potential future timber, and crucial habitat and food sources for a wide array of local wildlife. Beyond just the functional aspects, they're thoughtfully designed outdoor community spaces, like communal kitchens and shaded gathering areas, actively enhance family well-being, facilitate informal learning about ecology, and foster ecological literacy for both residents and visitors. It makes the homestead a hub for shared knowledge and connection in their local area.
Sometimes the simplest traditions hold the deepest wisdom, often passed down through generations almost invisibly. A powerful example of this is the fukugi windbreaks in Okinawa, Japan.
These are a beautiful, centuries-old example of traditional ecological knowledge in action. Rural homesteads in Okinawa have, for a very long time, used these multi-layer vegetation windbreaks, essentially living walls composed of several rows of densely planted evergreen trees, particularly the fukugi tree, Garcinia subelliptica.
And their main purpose?
Primarily, critical protection from the fierce typhoons that regularly hit the islands. These dense, resilient barriers shield homes and crops from devastating winds. But they also serve as vital wildlife habitat, providing shelter and food for birds and insects in an otherwise sometimes harsh coastal environment. They're deeply intertwined with the local cultural identity and provide a strong sense of place.
Are they still valued today?
Yes, what's particularly fascinating is that the local willingness to conserve these traditional systems remains very strong. They're viewed as a collective heritage. However, their ongoing success absolutely depends on collaborative stewardship cooperation between individual households who maintain their section, local governments providing support or guidance, and sometimes non-governmental organizations helping with planting or education. It highlights that even seemingly simple traditional practices benefit enormously from collective action and sustained community support. This shows you the power of community and policy working together to uphold timeless wisdom.
And looking across vast, often challenging landscapes, we find incredible insights from indigenous pastoralists and nomadic herders, particularly in places like Africa and Mongolia. These are huge scales.
Yes. In Mongolia, for example, indigenous pastoralists and nomadic herders, whose lifestyles revolve around vast grasslands, are actively leading landscape-scale protection efforts for some of the last truly intact temperate grasslands on Earth.
How are they doing that?
They're combining their traditional stewardship practices, which have sustained these delicate ecosystems for centuries, through rotational grazing patterns that follow seasonal growth, and a deep, intimate understanding of ecological cycles with new national commitments. These recent commitments aim to formally reserve an astonishing 30% to 40% of the entire country for ecological preservation and sustainable use. It demonstrates a powerful fusion of ancient wisdom and modern conservation policy working hand in hand. Their deep knowledge of the land, coupled with emerging political will, is protecting ecosystems on a scale few other nations can currently match.
So, if you're listening and feeling inspired by all of this, truly captivated by the vision of a harmonious life with nature, where do you start? What's the practical blueprint for putting these principles into action on your own piece of land or even in your community? Permaculture seems to offer a fantastic and comprehensive framework. It's not just a set of gardening techniques, is it?
No, it's far, far more than that.
Yeah.
Permaculture, which is short for permanent agriculture, or perhaps more accurately, permaculture, is a sophisticated systems thinking approach. It's a design philosophy rooted deeply in observing nature's patterns, learning from them, and mimicking nature's resilience.
What's the core aim?
Its core aim is to minimize disturbance to natural systems, while simultaneously maximizing diversity, efficiency, and fostering synergistic, beneficial interactions between all the elements in a system: plants, animals, water, energy, buildings, and humans. It's fundamentally about creating resilient, self-sustaining human habitats and agricultural systems that meet human needs ethically, without depleting the planet, moving beyond simple sustainability to active regeneration.
So, what are the key permaculture principles that would guide a family-led homestead aiming for this kind of deep harmony we've been talking about?
Well, there are several core principles, but a few stand out strongly in this context. First and foremost, as we've stressed, is observation and interaction. This is absolutely foundational.
5 years again?
Maybe not always 5 years, but the principle holds. It emphasizes spending extended time, months, maybe years, learning from the land before making big changes. Meticulously understanding patterns of sun, wind, water, wildlife, microclimates. This patience and deep understanding are absolutely critical for your long-term success, as they inform every subsequent design decision. Making things work with the site, not against it.
Okay, what else?
Second, obtain a yield and apply self-regulation. This means designing systems that produce abundance, food, fiber, energy, clean water, but also building in mechanisms for self-correction and feedback, learning from mistakes. Third, use small and slow solutions. You don't need to, and probably shouldn't, try to do everything at once. Start with manageable interventions, things you can handle. Experiment, learn, and allow your competence and your system to grow organically over time. This reduces risk and builds confidence.
Diversity is key too.
Hugely important. Fourth, use and value diversity, often expressed as polyculture. Instead of planting large blocks of a single crop, monoculture, you intentionally mix various crops, trees, perennials, and sometimes animals together to mimic natural ecological niches. Think food forests, skill planting. This increases resilience. If one crop fails, others survive. It reduces pest risks, and it builds inherent biodiversity right into your system.
And using edges.
Yes. Fifth, use edges and value the marginal. This principle means recognizing that the most productive and diverse areas in any ecosystem are often at the boundaries or edges where different systems meet, like the edge between a forest and a field or a pond bank. By intentionally designing to maximize these productive interfaces, you can significantly increase overall productivity and biodiversity on your land.
And water, of course.
And finally, catch and store energy and manage water effectively is paramount. Combining techniques like mulches to conserve soil moisture, contour swales to catch and spread water across the landscape, microbasins around trees, all integrated with robust rainwater harvesting, provides water self-sufficiency for people, livestock, and wildlife alike. It's about transforming precipitation from a potential problem, runoff, into a stored, valuable resource.
And what are the real-world outcomes for families who truly adopt and live by these permaculture principles? Is it really worth the effort involved?
The sources we looked at consistently indicate that families who genuinely embrace these principles report remarkable outcomes over time. They often see greater overall productivity from their land, achieving higher yields per square foot, especially when considering the diversity of products compared to conventional methods, which might have high yield of one thing but nothing else.
And ecological benefits.
Definitely. There's almost always a noticeable increase in biodiversity on their property, as beneficial insects, birds, amphibians, and other wildlife are drawn to the thriving, diverse ecosystem they've created. Crucially, they also frequently report a profound sense of satisfaction and well-being, deriving immense joy and connection from actively participating with the land.
And practically speaking, less work eventually.
From a practical standpoint, yes, they often experience reduced labor requirements over time as their perennial systems mature and become more self-regulating, and a dramatically decreased need for external inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, or even supplemental irrigation water, as their homesteads become truly more self-sufficient and resilient ecosystems in their own right.
A truly harmonious life also seems to imply a significant degree of independence from fossil fuels, given their massive environmental impact. So, how does a family effectively integrate renewable energy into this kind of off-grid or maybe grid-tied but low-impact nature-centric lifestyle?
Yeah, integrating robust renewable energy systems is absolutely essential for a low-impact rural life that genuinely aligns with these ecological principles. Solar power is obviously a standard and increasingly affordable component now. Photovoltaic PV arrays can be sized precisely to meet a family's specific energy needs, factoring in their climate and usage patterns.
But you need power at night too.
Exactly.
Right.
So these arrays are typically paired with modern battery banks, often using technologies like lithium-ion, which provide complete autonomy by storing excess energy generated during the day for use during nighttime or cloudy periods. Alternatively, grid-tied systems are also common, allowing excess energy to be exported back to the main grid when production exceeds consumption, sometimes even earning credits or revenue while still drawing from the grid if needed.
Are there other options besides solar?
Yes, depending on the location. In appropriate climates, small-scale wind turbines can offer significant energy contributions, especially in open, consistently windy areas. And even microhydro systems can be deployed on properties that have a reliable year-round stream or spring with sufficient elevation drop, or head. These can provide continuous, reliable baseload power 24/7.
So it's not just about generating power, but making sure you can store it and use it whenever you need it, and crucially, use it efficiently in the first place.
Exactly right. Modern lithium-ion batteries, coupled with advanced microinverters or charge controllers, are key for creating flexible, robust, off-grid or hybrid setups. They ensure consistent, reliable power even when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. But just as important, if not more so, is radical energy efficiency within the home itself.
Like the passive design.
Yes, heavily relying on those passive heating and cooling designs we discussed earlier. Thermal mass, solar orientation, natural ventilation. Also, using highly efficient LED lighting throughout the home. and incorporating natural, super insulating materials like straw bale, recycled denim insulation, cork or clay earth plasters to dramatically lower the overall energy loads needed for heating and cooling.
So use less, need less generation.
Precisely. By minimizing the energy demand in the first place, a family needs a far smaller, more affordable, and ultimately more sustainable energy generation and storage system. This whole integrated approach shows you how to minimize reliance on external, often fossil fuel dependent energy systems, truly closing another critical loop in the pursuit of genuine self-sufficiency and harmony.
Okay, this all sounds wonderful, almost like an idyllic vision of self-sufficiency, deep connection, living lightly on the earth. But what about the practicalities that often trip people up? The really hard stuff, the laws, the zoning regulations, and the fundamental question of economic self-sufficiency. It can't all be about idyllic living. There have got to be real-world hurdles.
You're hitting on some of the most crucial and, frankly, often challenging aspects. It's absolutely vital to acknowledge that existing legal and zoning frameworks in most places were not designed for this kind of living. They were designed for conventional development, and they can both restrict and, sometimes surprisingly, support nature-integrated living. Navigating them requires real diligence and proactivity.
So what kind of land should a family look for if they're serious about this, and what are the typical legal hurdles they might face?
Generally speaking, land zoned as agricultural, often called A-zone or sometimes rural residential, tends to be the most supportive, legally speaking, for off-grid living, food production, maybe keeping certain types of livestock. However, and this is a big however, even within these zones, you absolutely must be acutely aware that specific local restrictions, county or township rules, can still apply and vary wildly.
Like what kind of restrictions?
These might include limitations on animal density per acre, specific requirements for building codes that don't easily accommodate natural building materials like straw bale or rammed earth, which might require special engineering reports, restrictions on minimum dwelling size, which can impact tiny homes or smaller natural structures, rules around resale of properties with unconventional systems, and regulations regarding short-term uses like hosting educational workshops or running a small ecotourism B&B.
So you might need special permission.
In some cases, yes. To build an ecologically aligned dwelling that doesn't neatly fit conventional zoning or building codes, a family may need to apply for special use permits or variances. This can be a complex, potentially expensive, and time-consuming process, often requiring expert legal or architectural consultation.
So what's the key takeaway here?
The crucial, absolutely foundational step for any family seriously considering this path is proactive, in-depth research into local county and municipal codes before buying land. Consulting with legal professionals who specialize in land use and environmental law in that specific area, and critically, establishing open, transparent communication with local planning and building authorities early on. Try to understand their concerns and educate them about your plans before you invest or start developing land for long-term ecological living. This is such a vital, practical step for your family's success, potentially saving immense frustration, time, and resources down the road.
And on the economic side, can this kind of lifestyle actually support a family financially? Is it realistic? Is it about stepping off the economic grid entirely? Or can it be integrated somehow into a modern economy?
It absolutely can be economically viable, but it requires creativity and diversification. Small-scale, diversified homestead farming and permaculture practices provide a very solid foundation, primarily through dramatically reducing expenses.
How so?
Studies consistently highlight that these intensive integrated methods can achieve significantly higher overall productivity per acre, sometimes 5-10 times more value, especially when you consider the mix of crops, year-round management potential, and stacking multiple functions like timber, food, animal fodder on the same land compared to conventional large-scale row cropping of a single commodity. This leads directly to robust food security for the family, slashing grocery bills, and also greater climate resilience, as diverse systems are far less susceptible to single crop failures or market fluctuations.
But you still need income for other things.
True. Beyond direct food production and reduced expenses, economic self-sufficiency is often achieved through developing diverse income streams from the homestead or compatible with the lifestyle. This might include selling surplus produce at local farmers markets, creating value-added products like jams, preserves, cheeses, herbal remedies, or crafts, offering workshops or consultations on permaculture, natural building, or homesteading skills, maybe running a small, low-impact ecotourism operation like a cabin rental or farm stay, or increasingly common, engaging in remote work, writing, coding, consulting that allows the family to earn external income while living in their desired rural location.
Are there support systems?
Yes, and it's important to look for them. Our sources mention federal and local initiatives, like the USDA's Rural Micro Entrepreneur Assistance Program, RMAP, in the U.S., which provides essential training, technical assistance, grants, and loans specifically designed for small-scale rural businesses and entrepreneurs. These programs can significantly enable self-sufficiency and economic security without forcing families to sacrifice their ecological principles. This is a practical resource for you to explore if you're considering this path and need financial or business support.
Finally, this isn't a set-it-and-forget-it kind of lifestyle, is it? You design the system, build the house, plant the trees, but nature is dynamic, always changing. Ecosystems evolve, climate patterns shift. So how do families manage this long term? How do they adapt to changes in climate, wildlife populations, or even their own family needs over time?
That's such a crucial point. Adaptive management comes in as a cornerstone of long-term success and resilience. Rural families living this way must remain dynamic and responsive in their management practices, continually observing, learning, and emulating the adaptability and resilience that are inherent in natural systems themselves.
What does that look like in practice?
It involves implementing rigorous monitoring protocols, as we touched on earlier, collecting data regularly, maybe keeping detailed journals, conducting annual bird counts, tracking native plant diversity in specific plots, doing periodic soil tests, monitoring water quality in ponds or streams. It also involves potentially participating in citizen science programs, which contribute to larger ecological data sets and connect the family to broader scientific efforts and communities.
And using that data.
Yes, establishing continuous feedback loops. This might be informal family meetings to discuss observations and plan adjustments, or perhaps more structured biennial stewardship reports or committee reviews if they're part of a larger community like an eco-village. The key is using the monitoring data and observations to consciously adjust management practices as environmental conditions shift, as new ecological knowledge emerges, or as species populations change on their land.
So it's about being in a constant state of learning, observing, and responding, not sticking rigidly to the initial plan.
Exactly. Rigidity is the enemy of resilience in a dynamic world. Collaboration with regional or even national monitoring networks can also bring additional resources, foster valuable knowledge sharing, and provide a broader context to their local efforts, allowing them to benchmark their success and learn from others facing similar challenges or opportunities. Ultimately, adaptive management allows families to respond dynamically and intelligently to shifts in climate patterns, changes in species populations, variations in resource availability, and even their own evolving goals. This maximizes both human and ecological resilience in the long term. This is really about your commitment to ongoing learning, your deep responsiveness to the living world around you, and your active participation in its continued thriving.
So, to recap our really fascinating deep dive today, can a family of 5 truly live in profound harmony with nature in a rural setting? Practicing ethical land stewardship, fostering reciprocity, maintaining a non-exploitative relationship with wildlife. Our comprehensive exploration of these diverse sources clearly says, yes, it's not just a beautiful ideal anymore. It's a proven, achievable reality that is already being lived successfully by many families and communities around the world.
Indeed. It absolutely requires immense humility, though. Unwavering patience, especially in that observation phase. Deep and continuous observation throughout. And a profound willingness to learn directly from nature's inherent wisdom, from its patterns and processes. It's fundamentally about a deep commitment to ethical frameworks that truly transcend conventional ideas of utility and short-term gain. It's about truly rooting yourselves in place and becoming fully integrated, reciprocal participants in nature's grand design. It's a transformative journey, not just a lifestyle choice.
And the key enabling factors we've highlighted today seem crucial to making this success possible. That continuous observation and adaptive management piece. Integrated ecological building design that works with the climate in sight. Genuine renewable energy independence, moving away from fossil fuels. Diligent closed-loop nutrient cycling, turning waste into resource. Deep collaboration and learning with local and indigenous communities, valuing their knowledge. Proactive legal due diligence to navigate the system. And active lifelong participation in community-based and even global-scale learning networks. It's a comprehensive vision, isn't it? An invitation to a fundamentally different way of being in the world.
By rooting themselves meaningfully in place, by focusing on stewardship, and by reciprocally nourishing the land and its countless denizens, these rural families and communities help to evolve a crucial regenerative model for our planetary future. This is potentially a future where our human presence, our living lightly, actively amplified rather than erodes the enduring beauty, the the stability, the integrity, and the vibrant health of the natural world that sustains us all.
This whole deep dive really makes me think. If living this lightly, this harmoniously, can genuinely amplify the beauty and integrity of the natural world, fostering such deep connection and shared abundance, what small reciprocal step could you take today, right where you are, in your own immediate environment, whether it's urban, suburban, or rural? What step could you take to begin that journey of deeper kinship with the land? Even if it's just nurturing your garden differently, supporting local regenerative farmers, paying attention to a local park, or even rethinking your relationship with your own household waste.
And maybe consider this. If every household, regardless of its location or size, began to view its immediate environment, its yard, its balcony, its street trees, its local watershed, not just as a possession, a parcel of land or a personal space to be controlled, but as a dynamic, living part of a larger, interconnected biotic community, a community with which they have a moral obligation to engage reciprocally, to give back at least as much as they receive. What truly transformative world might our children and grandchildren inherit in just a single generation? What could that look like? Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the heart of fascinating ideas and emerge with insights that truly make you well informed. Today we're tackling an incredibly compelling question, one that often feels almost, well, counterintuitive when we look at human history. Can genuine human progress actually exist without a significant cost to nature? I mean, is it truly possible to build thriving communities, even entire nations, without first exploiting the land or displacing native wildlife? Feels like we've always had to choose, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and that's precisely the the existential dilemma that so many of our sources grapple with in the 21st century. We've become conditioned almost to this pervasive belief that development inherently means remediation. You know, we build, we extract, we disrupt, and then we try to clean up the mess or mitigate the damage later on.
Right, the cleanup always comes second.
Exactly. But what if we could flip that script entirely? What if the starting point was deep ecological respect and integration, where growth and flourishing don't necessitate degradation, but actually, maybe, enhance the living world around us? That's the powerful and often surprising idea we're exploring today.
That's the core question, isn't it? A fundamental shift. And our mission today is to take a deep dive into an incredible array of sources that explore exactly that. Whether a harmonious development paradigm with nature is possible without those initial, often devastating costs. You know, the ecosystem displacement, the land exploitation. We've pulled together a really rich tapestry of information from across the globe, from ancient practices to, well, cutting-edge urban design.
And when you say rich tapestry, you're not kidding. We're looking at, well, everything. From ancient indigenous stewardship practices and modern permaculture techniques, to innovative ecological urban planning, and even looking at nation-scale happiness indexes. It's a broad scope. We'll try to extract the core principles and some truly surprising facts from real-world case studies across the continents, and show how these ideas are not just theoretical, but are actively being put into practice right now, often with remarkable success.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of environmental challenges, or perhaps you've wondered if there are truly viable, optimistic alternatives to that grow-at-all-costs mentality that seems to dominate our world, then this deep dive is definitely for you. We're aiming for those aha moments, the ones that make you truly feel well-informed, and dare I say, maybe even a little more hopeful about our future on this planet. So as we ponder that big question, where do we even begin looking for answers? Perhaps, as with many profound questions, the answers lie not necessarily in futuristic tech, but maybe in ancient wisdom. Let's start with what might be the oldest continuously practiced paradigms for development, intertwined with ecological balance. Indigenous land stewardship. It really stands in stark contrast to the often extractive colonial models that have dominated so much of recent history. You see a fundamentally different relationship with the land itself.
It's a profound difference, truly. The core principles of indigenous stewardship emphasize reciprocal relationships with nature. It's not just take, it's very much give and take. This ensures a cultural continuity that's inextricably linked to the land and focuses on maintaining ecosystem health right from the outset, rather than as an afterthought or, a problem to solve later.
Right, not just damage control.
Exactly. It's not merely about resource management, it's a holistic way of being. Human well-being is seen as inherently tied to the well-being of the entire living system. This is often encapsulated in what's known as traditional ecological knowledge, or tech. And tech isn't just about knowing which plant cures what, although that's part of it. It's a really sophisticated, adaptive body of knowledge, woven together from practical survival skills, spiritual values, and deep resilience, built over millennia of intimate observation and coexistence with the environment.
That concept of identity being tied directly to the land is so powerful. I remember reading about the Maori of Aotearoa in New Zealand, and how they introduced themselves by their mountain, their river, and their marae, their tribal meeting ground or sacred space. It's not just a poetic gesture, is it? It demonstrates a deep, fundamental identity rooted in the landscape itself. And with that identity comes an inherent, profound responsibility toward it.
Precisely. It's a living, breathing connection. And we see real-world outcomes that demonstrate the incredible effectiveness of these philosophies. Take the Aboriginal Healthy Country Plans in Australia, for instance. These aren't just, theoretical documents gathering dust on a shelf. They are community-led, vision-driven plans that blend traditional ecological knowledge with contemporary scientific understanding. They're effectively blueprints for stewarding vast swaths of land.
So what kind of tangible results are they seeing from these plans? What's the biggest impact on the ground?
The results are tangible and truly impressive, actually. They lead to significant biodiversity gains, incredibly effective fire control, which is a huge deal in Australia, obviously.
Absolutely.
And robust youth engagement, ensuring that this vital knowledge passes through generations. A prime example is traditional cool-burning fire management. It's a practice now widely recognized globally for its ecological sophistication.
Cool burning, right. How does that differ from the wildfires we usually hear about?
Well, unlike the catastrophic high-intensity wildfires we often see making headlines, cool burns are low-intensity prescribed fires. They systematically reduce fuel loads on the ground, stimulate the regeneration of native plant species, and actually prevent those devastating blazes that release massive amounts of greenhouse gases. It's a sophisticated, adaptive strategy. It benefits both the ecosystem and the climate. It really demonstrates how human intervention, when guided by deep ecological understanding, can actually enhance natural processes.
That's a powerful lesson in prevention, not just reaction. It makes so much sense. And it's not just in Australia. In the United States, we have the Yurok tribal forestry in California. This isn't just about conservation and isolation. It's a model that brilliantly balances income generation, so economic viability, with the preservation of sacred sites and the entire ecosystem.
Yes, that balance is key.
They've seen restored redwood forests, intentional burns to promote native grass growth, and the creation of vital local jobs, all within a framework that respects their heritage. It sounds almost, well, ideal.
It sounds ideal because it's a design born from New Zealand. This legal framework literally grants legal personhood to the Wanganui River.
Legal personhood for a river. How does that work?
It's not just symbolic. It legally embeds the spiritual and ecological values of the river into law, and it mandates Indigenous and Crown co-management structures. This ensures the river's health is prioritized, and importantly, it upholds Maori rights and their deep connection to the waterway. Imagine granting a river the same fundamental rights as a human being. It's paradigm shifting.
That's a truly revolutionary approach to legal status for natural entities. It sets an incredible precedent. And moving from rivers to the very practical side of water harvesting. The Johad water systems in Rajasthan, India offer another fantastic example. These are community-built rainwater harvesting systems, often deeply embedded with cultural rituals.
Yeah.
They have incredibly practical outcomes, enhancing drought resilience, recharging vital aquifers. They literally transform landscapes that were once barren.
Absolutely, and the community aspect is vital there too. And back in Australia, Indigenous Protected Areas, or IPAs, are another powerful illustration. These are voluntarily managed areas that blend traditional Indigenous management practices with contemporary conservation science. They even include carbon abatement projects, which have led to over 1 million tons of CO2 being abated annually.
Wow, 1 million tons, that's significant.
It is. But beyond the direct environmental impact, they create jobs and foster immense community pride. It's a truly holistic approach. It shows how ecological health, economic opportunity, and cultural well-being can be mutually reinforcing, not mutually exclusive.
So we've seen incredible successes here, demonstrating profound positive impacts. These examples are really compelling. But I can imagine there are hurdles to adopting something so deeply ingrained and often countercultural to, well, modern systems. What are the biggest pushbacks or structural challenges these practices face when they bump up against the status quo?
That's a crucial question because, yes, despite their efficacy, these models do face significant hurdles. One of the biggest is probably land tenure insecurities, where traditional Indigenous land rights might be challenged or not fully recognized by dominant legal systems. That uncertainty is a major barrier.
Right, the legal foundation isn't always solid.
Exactly. Then there are policy recognition gaps, meaning governmental frameworks might not fully integrate or support Indigenous approaches, or sometimes they might be merely advisory rather than truly empowering, giving shared management but not shared authority.
So consultation without real power.
Precisely. And of course the ever-present dominant economic pressures, which often prioritize short-term resource exploitation over long-term ecological and cultural health. That's a constant battle. We even see limitations when co-management remains merely advisory, like with Bears Ears National Monument in the USA initially. Despite Indigenous input, the transformative potential can fall short if federal power limits full tribal authority and decision-making.
That makes sense. The structures have to support the philosophy.
Yes. What's fascinating here, though, is how these age-old approaches powerfully demonstrate that development can build with nature, not against it. Often without displacement or major ecological loss, if the fundamental power structures and societal values allow it. It really challenges the dominant narrative that progress inevitably requires a destructive first step.
Absolutely. It really redefines what progress can even mean. It suggests the biggest barrier isn't possibility, but perhaps entrenched power structures and assumptions. Moving from ancient wisdom, let's now look at modern solutions that are also deeply rooted in working with nature. Permaculture and agroecology come to mind. Permaculture, co-founded by Bill Mollison and David Holmgren, is often described as a design system that's applicable globally, built on 3 core ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share.
That's right. And permaculture isn't just about gardening, though that's often how people encounter it. It's a comprehensive design philosophy for creating sustainable human habitats. It's much broader. Think of it like this. If your conventional farm is a neat monoculture grid, a permaculture system is more like a mini forest or a vibrant ecosystem, deliberately mimicking nature's wild efficiency and interconnectedness.
So less straight lines, more complexity.
Exactly. Its 12 design principles provide a holistic blueprint for how to achieve that. For example, observe and interact means you spend significant time understanding the existing natural patterns of a place, sun, wind, water flow, existing species, before you ever intervene. You watch first. Catch and store energy water emphasizes capturing resources like rainwater and solar energy locally, and building soil fertility as primary goals. Modularity and diversity pushes for polycultures, multiple crops grown together mimicking natural ecosystems as opposed to the simplified monoculture fields that are so common and vulnerable today.
More resilience built in.
Definitely. Produce no waste is pretty self-explanatory, focusing on composting, recycling, closed-loop cycles where outputs from one system become inputs for another. Then there's design from patterns to details, meaning you map the big ecological flows, like water paths or sun angles, before finalizing any layouts for, say, buildings or garden beds. And critically, integrate rather than segregate. This fosters mutually beneficial relationships between elements, like agroforestry, where trees and crops grow together, or integrated livestock systems that help fertilize the soil.
It sounds very interconnected. How does agroecology fit in? Is it the same thing?
It's related but slightly different in focus. Agroecology is more specifically about adapting agricultural practices to their specific local ecological contexts. It also integrates scientific knowledge with traditional and local knowledge systems that theme again to build agricultural resilience and promote regeneration. It's maybe less about a fixed set of design principles like permaculture, and more about an adaptive, context-specific approach to farming, deeply rooted in understanding local conditions. Both are about working with nature, though.
That integration of scientific and traditional knowledge seems to be a really powerful, recurring theme here. It's key to adaptability, isn't it? And speaking of specific practices, let's talk about syntropic agriculture, pioneered by Ernst Gutsch in Brazil. This is a fascinating farming method that rigorously avoids the typical bare soil exploitation or displacement of native life. It almost feels like cultivating a thriving, productive forest, but without the traditional cleared land first approach.
It truly does. Syntropic farming actively recreates densely layered, succession-based agro-ecosystems. It's quite complex but elegant. Imagine planting trees, shrubs, and ground cover all together, arranged in vertical layers and according to their natural life cycles, or succession. From fast-growing pioneer species like the speedy first responders of the plant world that colonize disturbed land and prepare it for others, all the way up to long-term canopy trees. Biodiversity is maximized.
So lots of different plants working together.
Exactly. Each plant literally supporting the others, creating a robust, self-regulating system that, ideally, requires no external chemical inputs. And strategic pruning isn't just for tidiness, it mimics natural disturbance, like a tree falling in a forest. This stimulates regrowth and rapid soil formation, essentially speeding up natural ecological processes. And perhaps most astonishingly, it maximizes water retention within the soil itself. Gutsch calls it planting water.
Planting water, I like that. What kind of results do they see with water use?
The results can be dramatic. We have case studies from Curacao where on initially barren, degraded soils, irrigation needs dropped by a staggering 90% within just 6 months after implementing syntropic principles.
90%. That's huge, especially in dry areas.
It's transformative. And that Curacao project, where truly barren soils evolved into productive tropical agroforests, actually halting desertification and reviving groundwater, it's just striking. It's a real-world example of not just stopping, but reversing environmental degradation through agriculture.
That's incredible. Are there other examples?
Yes. In Minas Gerais, Brazil, syntropic coffee farming provides another powerful case study. They're blending perennial coffee crops with indigenous trees. This approach isn't just yielding coffee, it's actively restoring soil functioning and building climate resilience in the region. It creates a more stable and diverse agricultural landscape compared to conventional coffee monocultures.
So more than just the main crop.
Absolutely. These benefits extend to broader regenerative agroforestry practices too. Things like building soil carbon, which helps mitigate climate change, naturally suppressing diseases because of the diversity, and effectively planting water through enhanced infiltration. Even practices like strip cropping, seen in places like the Netherlands, demonstrate pest reduction and yield stability without the ecosystem simplification that typically comes with large-scale agriculture.
Okay, so on the surface, these sound incredibly promising. Better soil, less water, more biodiversity, climate resilience. But a common criticism of ecological agriculture, and maybe these methods, often revolves around transition costs and scalability. Can we really feed the world this way? And what happens to farmers during that initial transition period? It sounds labor intensive.
Those are absolutely valid points, and they require thoughtful solutions. There's no denying it. The transition period can involve initial labor intensity, especially in establishing the system, and it requires a significant shift in skill sets for farmers, moving away from conventional, often simpler, chemical-dependent farming. However, there are ways to design the transition. Examples like Mediterranean orchard designs show how you can layer crops. You plant fast-growing pioneer species alongside fruit and berry crops. The pioneers condition the soil, and the others provide income continuity throughout the transition. It demonstrates viable economic pathways. The key is thoughtful design that ensures economic stability for the farmer during that shift.
So bridging the gap economically.
Exactly. What's clear is that these methods do demand a high degree of ecological literacy. You need to understand the system you're working with. They often require intense early labor for establishment, that's true. And crucially, they need strong institutional support, things like technical assistance, access to funding or credit, and supportive policy incentives to help farmers adopt them successfully. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows that abundance and prosperity can be fostered while actively restoring, not degrading, ecosystems. It shifts the paradigm from simple extraction or even just sustainability towards active co-creation and regeneration with nature.
That reframing of abundance is truly powerful. It's about building a better system, not just preventing a worse one. Let's expand on this idea of living within nature's boundaries by talking about bioregionalism. This offers an ecological and governance framework that centers societal organization around local ecosystems. Things like watersheds, the specific flora and fauna, the climate of a place.
Exactly. The core ethos of bioregionalism is a profound philosophical shift away from the purely human-centered view. It asserts that we should not conform the environment to humans, but transform human societies to fit the land. That's the key phrase. This means defining human settlements, food production, water management, even cultural identity by ecological boundaries. By the actual contours of the land and its living systems, the watershed you live in, for instance, rather than by arbitrary political lines drawn on a map centuries ago.
So living within the watershed's logic, not ignoring it.
Precisely. It's about understanding and respecting the inherent limits and opportunities of a specific place, its bioregion, and designing human life accordingly.
That's a radical idea for how we organize our lives. Moving beyond the traditional concept of countries or states as the primary organizers. And there's a fantastic real-world case study in Bahia de Caracas, Ecuador. This city actually adopted a bioregional plan after being devastated by floods and earthquakes in the late 90s. Instead of just rebuilding the old way, they made a conscious choice to integrate deeply with their natural environment. What did that look like on the ground?
They did, and it's quite inspiring, especially given the disaster context. They rebuilt with widespread community composting programs to build soil fertility. They implemented extensive reforestation using native plants, crucial for slope stability and biodiversity. They designed and built biological sewage treatment systems, essentially constructed wetlands that mimic natural processes to clean water. And they focused on developing local water and energy infrastructure, reducing external dependencies.
And was the community involved?
Critically so. The community engagement was absolutely crucial. It wasn't just top-down planning. They focused heavily on ecological education across the city and large-scale replanting initiatives, really bringing the citizens into the process of recovery and redesign. What's truly remarkable is that the well-being of the Rio Chon watershed became the explicit measure of long-term development and urban management for the city. It was no longer just about economic growth figures. It was about the health of their living territory, their home.
That's a clear metric, isn't it? A truly holistic measure of success. So beyond Bahia de Caracas, what are some of the key features we see globally in bioregional approaches, in places that are trying to fit human society to the land?
You often see a strong emphasis on localized food systems. Rooftop gardens, community gardens, urban agriculture becoming common, reducing food miles and increasing resilience. There's a focus on circular water systems like gray water reuse for irrigation, reducing overall waste and pressure on freshwater sources. Parks aren't just decorative patches of green, they're designed as vital wildlife corridors, often using native flora to support local ecosystems. There's a push for local decentralized renewable energy systems, solar, wind, microhydro, reducing reliance on external, often polluting large-scale grids. And critically, democratic participatory governance structures are often central. Concepts like water commons, where water resources are managed collectively for the common good, not privatized or centrally controlled without local input.
So more local control, more local resources.
Yes. Beyond Bahia de Caracas, bioregional thinking and design have influenced regions like the Cascadia bioregion in the Pacific Northwest of the USA and Canada, and even aspects of community organization in the Zapatista communities in Chiapas, Mexico. It demonstrates its adaptability across various cultural and political contexts, even if it's not always formally labeled bioregionalism.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Imagining our cities and communities as extensions of their natural landscapes rather than separate, almost alien entities plonked down on top. It's complete rethinking of urban design, isn't it?
Precisely. And that brings us directly to ecological urban planning, which represents a significant shift in how we conceptualize and build our cities. Traditional urban planning, which often relies on rigid sectoral zoning, putting all residential here, all commercial there, and focuses primarily on infrastructural efficiency, like moving cars quickly, is increasingly recognized as inadequate for addressing the complex environmental crises we face today. Climate change, biodiversity loss, resource depletion. It essentially treats cities like static machines, optimizing parts in isolation rather than seeing them as dynamic living systems.
Static machines. That's a powerful image. So what should a city be then from this ecological perspective? How does ecological urban planning conceptualize the city differently? Can you give us that this versus that breakdown again, maybe, to help us visualize the shift?
Certainly. The new paradigm views the city as an ecological organism, dynamic, diverse, and adaptive. It's a living entity, not just concrete and steel. So if we compare conventional planning versus ecological urban planning unit. Conventional is typically sector-based housing zones, industrial zones, commercial zones, often separated. Ecological urban planning is area-based, recognizing natural units like watersheds and bioregions as the fundamental planning blocks. The land dictates the units.
Okay, so based on nature's boundaries.
Right. Process. Traditional is often top-down and technocratic, designed by experts, maybe with some public consultation at the end. Ecological planning is iterative, participatory, and community-driven, engaging local residents and stakeholders throughout the entire planning process, from visioning to implementation.
More democratic.
Yes. Problem framing. Conventional planning often frames issues in isolation, traffic congestion here, housing shortage there. Ecological planning is value-based, developmental, long-term, addressing root causes and interconnectedness within the broader ecosystem and social system.
Looking at the whole picture.
Exactly. Scale. Conventional approaches tend to be rigid and citywide, applying uniform rules everywhere. Ecological planning is contextual, adaptive, and locally embedded, recognizing the unique characteristics of different neighborhoods and ecosystems within a city, allowing for tailored, place-specific solutions.
Makes sense. Different parts of a city have different needs and natures.
Precisely. And finally, ecology. In conventional planning, ecology is often a background consideration, maybe a constraint or a box to tick for environmental impact assessments. In ecological urban planning, it's foregrounded. The city is an organism interacting with its environment, and the place itself carries a narrative, a history of its natural systems that informs every design decision.
Fascinating. It's about reading the landscape's history.
Yes, and the Urban Ecological Planning, or UEP, model is a great example of this in practice. It places a strong emphasis on mapping pre-settlement ecology, understanding what the landscape looked like before major human alteration. What streams were there, what forests, what wetlands. This involves identifying these historic features and then actively integrating them into new development plans through collaborative stakeholder engagement. It's about building with the land's original blueprint, weaving nature back in, not just paving over its memory.
That's a powerful idea, using the land's original blueprint as a guide for future development.
Yeah.
It connects the past and future. And we see this in action with Atlanta's Urban Ecology Framework, or UEF. I read about that. It's a powerful tool that integrates geospatial data, community reflection, and ecological science to map urban biodiversity corridors and prioritize restoration efforts. What kind of tangible outcomes have they seen there?
The outcomes in Atlanta have been quite significant and practical. They've revised tree ordinances, for instance, to better protect the existing urban tree canopy and promote new planting, recognizing trees as vital infrastructure. They've invested heavily in ecological infrastructure like green stormwater solutions, bioswales, rain gardens instead of just bigger pipes. And they've actively promoted more equitable access to nature for all residents, ensuring parks and green spaces aren't just in wealthy areas, all based on that deep historical landscape analysis and iterative public input.
So tangible benefits for both nature and people.
Yes, it's a comprehensive approach that ties together ecological health with social equity. Similarly, if we look at Barcelona's superblocks and the broader 15-minute city concept gaining traction in places like Paris, these are not just about making things convenient, though they do that too. They are urban interventions that fundamentally restrict car traffic in certain areas, repurposing vast amounts of public space for more roads for people, for greenery, for local life. The results are dramatic. Significant rises in local businesses within these zones, the creation of much-needed green play areas, and a drastic reduction in car traffic, air pollution, noise pollution, and the urban heat island effect.
It sounds like reclaiming the city for people and nature. These are incredible transformations at the neighborhood level. But let's zoom out to the city scale, because there are some truly global exemplars that have been harmonizing urban development and nature for decades now. Curitiba, Brazil, always comes up, often called the living master plan. How did they achieve that reputation? What did they do differently?
Curitiba has truly been a pioneer, starting way back in the 1960s. It's a testament to long-term visionary leadership and consistent political will, which is rare. They've implemented really forward-looking strategies that have consistently put ecology and social well-being at the forefront. For instance, they adopted strategic density along transit axes. Instead of sprawl, they concentrated development along dedicated bus corridors, integrating it seamlessly with their iconic bus rapid transit, or BRT, system, which itself became a global benchmark for efficient public transport.
The BRT, right?
Very famous.
Very. This avoided uncontrolled sprawl and made public transport highly efficient and equitable. And instead of building expensive concrete canals to control flooding, which was a major issue, they created green flood control parks along the rivers. These parks restore native habitat, reduce disaster risk naturally by absorbing water, and double as beloved recreational spaces for residents.
So solving multiple problems with one green solution. Exactly. They also have a recycling program with a remarkable 70% participation rate. They even implemented clever green exchanges, where low-income residents can trade recyclable waste for bus tokens or fetch food, linking environmental action directly to social benefit. They've developed industrial clusters with strict zero-pollution mandates, designed extensive walkable pedestrian zones in the city center, and maintain a continuous public education effort about sustainable living, making it part of the city's culture.
And the outcomes are truly remarkable, aren't they? It sounds like they managed to hit all the right notes: environment, equity, economy.
Absolutely. The strategic urban growth resulted in efficient, low-emission, and socially inclusive neighborhoods. The natural flood control through parks and lakes brought flood resilience, increased biodiversity, and reduced public infrastructure costs significantly. Their socioeconomic inclusion through things like a flat fare transit system and decentralized citizen centers ensured equitable access to services for all residents regardless of income. And their approach to heritage preservation and mixed-use zoning, using tools like development rights transfers, helped maintain cultural continuity and minimize the kind of gentrification that displaces long-term residents. Curitiba really proves that an entire city can flourish while becoming greener and more equitable, all while avoiding that initial widespread displacement and degradation often seen elsewhere.
It's an inspiring long-term story. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, both geographically and maybe in terms of its inception, we have Masdar City in the UAE. This is a truly bold experiment designed from the absolute outset to prove that a city can emerge without erasing native landscapes or relying on fossil fuels, even in a challenging desert environment. What makes it so unique?
Masdar City was conceived as a living laboratory, a test bed for sustainable urban development in an extreme climate. It's incredibly ambitious. Its core features are cutting edge, pushing the boundaries of green tech and design. Things like passive design principles specifically adapted for the desert, a raised city podium to catch cooler breezes, strategically placed shade structures, narrow streets acting as wind tunnels to channel airflow naturally. They prioritize the use of recycled local materials to minimize the embodied energy in construction. Their targets are incredibly ambitious. 100% renewable electricity, mainly from solar desalination for all water needs, and entirely car-free streets within the main city core, relying on autonomous electric pods and walkability.
Car-free in a modern city? That's bold.
Very. They have integrated waste recovery, recycling, and reuse systems, with all landscaping utilizing treated gray water to conserve precious fresh water. Real-time energy and water monitoring systems and smart grid applications help optimize resource use minute by minute. And there's an emphasis on participatory urban governance, allowing residents and businesses to actively shape their environment and its performance.
So, a high-tech approach to living with the desert. And what have the outcomes been so far for this ambitious project? Is it working?
Well, it's important to remember it's still in progress and continuing to evolve and grow. It hasn't reached its final planned size yet, but Masdar definitely sets a global benchmark for city-scale sustainable design, especially in challenging climates. It has demonstrated drastic reductions in energy and water demand compared to conventional cities in the region, and there's been rigorous attention paid to biodiversity and habitat enhancement within the city's footprint and surroundings, even as it grows. It proves that you can design for an arid, challenging environment and still aim for net positive impacts right from the beginning. It's a powerful proof of concept.
So both Curitiba, with its long history, and Masdar, with its high-tech vision, offer incredible examples, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in urban design. But even these pioneering models must have their constraints, right? What are the catches or the challenges they face?
They do. No model is perfect, and context matters hugely. One significant factor, particularly for projects like Masdar, but also relevant for comprehensive redesigns like Curitiba's initial phases, is the higher initial capital and design requirements. These kinds of integrated, thoughtful projects need more upfront investment in planning, design, and technology. While their operational costs, energy, water, waste management, disaster recovery tend to be lower in the long run, that initial investment hurdle can be a barrier for many cities, especially those with fewer resources.
The upfront cost is always a factor.
Always. Another challenge is achieving full biodiversity restoration in landscapes that were previously significantly degraded. Masdar's transformation, for instance, is ongoing. It's creating habitats, but fully restoring a complex desert ecosystem within an urban fabric takes a very long time and faces inherent limitations. You can't perfectly replicate what was lost. And a persistent challenge that applies across many of these innovative urban projects, whether it's Barcelona's superblocks or revitalized neighborhoods in Curitiba, is preventing eco-gentrification. The very improvements that make a neighborhood greener, healthier, and more desirable can also drive up property values and rents, potentially pricing out low-income residents and small businesses.
Right. The success can create new problems of exclusion.
Exactly. This requires robust policy instruments, things like inclusionary zoning, rent stabilization, support for community land trusts, and very careful social planning to ensure that the benefits of greening are shared equitably. This raises that really important question again. How do we scale these successes while safeguarding against unintended social consequences? How do we ensure that sustainable, harmonious living remains accessible for everyone, not just a luxury for the affluent?
That's a critical question that really underpins the social justice aspect of environmentalism. Ensuring these benefits aren't just for the privileged few is key. Now let's look at some living laboratories that are testing these ideas on a more community-focused scale: eco-villages and intentional communities. First up, Feinhorn Eco-Village in Scotland, which is a world-renowned model. What makes Feinhorn so special? What are they doing there?
Feinhorn has truly evolved into an extraordinary model over several decades. It integrates human settlement, community governance, and ecological design in a really deep way. They've pioneered a number of innovations. They have extremely rigorous ecological building codes, for example, mandating things like recycled materials, passive solar design for heating and light, and even breathing wall construction for natural ventilation, which drastically reduces energy needs for heating and cooling. They use shared district heating systems, often biomass fueled, and generate significant amounts of on-site wind power. They actually export surplus electricity back to the national grid.
So they're energy producers, not just consumers.
Net producers, yes. One of their most impressive features is the living machine. It's a biological wastewater treatment system that mimics the complex processes of natural wetland ecosystems. It uses plants, bacteria, snails, fish, all working together in tanks and marshes to purify wastewater, producing water that's clean enough for safe groundwater recharge or reuse in irrigation. It's ingenious.
Wow, treating waste with an ecosystem.
Exactly. They also have community-supported agriculture, CSA, permaculture-based micro-farming providing local food, and even a local currency, the eco, which helps support community projects and encourages local trade, keeping resources circulating within the community rather than leaking out.
And the results speak to themselves, don't they? What's the bottom line there in terms of impact?
Absolutely. Feinhorn's measured ecological footprint is roughly half the UK average, which is already a significant achievement. And as mentioned, they are net energy exporters. They're effectively giving back more clean energy to the grid than they consume. What truly distinguishes Feinhorn, though, isn't just the technology. It's the direct link they've forged between their ecological systems, their local economy, and their cultural and spiritual life. It powerfully demonstrates how community cohesion, shared values in their case, including spiritual practices and dedicated environmental stewardship, can jointly drive prosperity and genuinely low-impact living. It's not just about the tech, it's about the deep cultural and social commitment to living in harmony.
That holistic integration is clearly key. It's the software as much as the hardware. Another significant example, though perhaps less known in some circles, is Auroville in India. What kind of experiments are they conducting there?
Auroville is fascinating. Founded on a vision of spiritual and social transformation, human unity, and self-sufficiency, it serves as both a large-scale research campus and a practical demonstration of collective ecological living. They started on land that was largely barren, seriously degraded, and they've been experimenting for decades with sustainable afforestation, literally reforesting thousands of acres, bringing back native species. They work extensively with organic agriculture, advanced ecological waste treatment systems, and various forms of renewable energy generation suited to their location. They've seen significant ecological restoration and productivity gains on land that was once almost desertified. It proves that intentional communities, even on a larger scale like Auroville with thousands of residents from many nations, can be powerful catalysts for ecological regeneration, essentially building life in abundance where little existed before.
These intentional communities really are fascinating laboratories for living differently, pushing the boundaries. And they lead us beautifully into the idea of biomimicry in architecture and urban design, essentially learning directly from nature's blueprints. Biomimicry, as advocated by figures like Janine Benyus and the Biomimicry Institute, is the explicit emulation of life's designs, strategies, and systems in human innovation. It's about asking nature how it solves problems.
That's right. The core question in biomimicry isn't what can we extract from nature, or how can we control or dominate nature. Instead, it's a deeply humble question. What would nature do here? How has life already solved this challenge over 3.8 billion years of evolution? It emphasizes learning from nature's genius, not just appropriating its resources or dominating its processes. It shifts the entire relationship from one of master to one of apprentice or student.
And the architectural examples are so vivid, almost like nature whispered, building secrets to architects.
Let's do a rapid-fire tour of some of these, connecting the natural inspiration to the built outcome for our listeners. Make it tangible. Okay, the Eastgate Center in Harare, Zimbabwe. What did they learn from a tiny insect?
Termite mounds. Those incredible structures maintain a stable internal temperature in harsh climates through passive ventilation systems. The Eastgate Center mimicked this, leading to a remarkable 90% energy savings in air conditioning compared to conventional buildings nearby.
90%, just by copying termites. Wow. So nature had the answer all along. What about something completely different, like those big dome structures we often see, like biomes?
The Eden Project in the UK with its iconic geodesic biomes. Their incredibly lightweight yet strong and energy-efficient structure is based directly on the geometry of soap bubbles and radial area skeletons, achieving maximum volume with minimum material.
Soap bubbles. Simple but effective. And the Beijing Aquatic Center, the water cube from the Olympics, that was visually stunning. It drew its structural efficiency, energy efficiency, and optimal solar gain from the natural cell structure of organisms, and again, the physics of soap bubbles forming foams. It maximizes natural light penetration while minimizing energy use for heating and lighting.
How about something tall, like the Gherkin building in London, that distinct Peakle shape?
Its aerodynamic form and structural design, which helps resist wind loads efficiently and allows for natural ventilation, were inspired partly by the Venus flower basket sea sponge. This sponge has an intricate lattice-like skeleton that is remarkably strong and stiff for its weight. Nature's engineering is truly unparalleled.
A sea sponge influencing a skyscraper. Amazing. And finally, the Esplanade Theatre in Singapore, with its unique, spiky exterior. Looks like a fruit.
It does. That design mimics the thorny, multi-layered skin of the durian fruit. It acts as a responsive shading system, with movable sunshades that adjust to the angle of the sun, perfectly controlling heat gain and light inside, adapting dynamically to the tropical climate.
So what does this all mean for us? Taking these examples together, it seems to fundamentally shift our perspective from viewing nature as merely a resource to extract from or a force to overcome, to seeing it as a truly profound mentor, a library of solutions we can learn infinitely from.
It's a profound paradigm shift, isn't it? From an extractive mindset to an imitative learning mindset, from conquering nature to consulting nature. And this learning from nature extends to some of the most basic yet critical needs for human settlement: securing water, especially in dry lands. Around the world, indigenous wisdom, often combined with modern regenerative water harvesting methods, is demonstrating how to reverse ecological decline and dramatically improve livelihoods in arid and semi-arid zones.
Indeed. We touched on jihad earlier when discussing indigenous models in India, but it's worth revisiting them here specifically for water regeneration. These are community-built earthen ponds or check dams that capture monsoon rains. They effectively recharge groundwater, support biodiversity, and enable farming even in very dry regions. Can you imagine the impact of literally bringing water back to parched lands through community effort?
The impact is absolutely transformative. The revival of over 3,500 jihads in Rajasthan, spearheaded by the efforts of community groups like Tarun Bharat Sangh and led by figures like Rajendra Singh, has literally transformed thousands of drought-stricken villages into productive and cohesive communities. It serves as powerful testimony to their efficacy. It's an act of restoring not just water tables, but hope and community resilience.
Bringing hope back with water, that's powerful. And going back even further in history, the Khanats of Persia, now Iran, are truly a marvel of ancient engineering. These are ancient underground channels, sometimes stretching for miles, that gently transport water via gravity from distant mountain aquifers to settlements in the desert plains. They enable desert farming and settlement to thrive for over 3,000 years in some of the world's driest regions.
3 millennia! The longevity of Khanats is astounding, isn't it?
It really is. How did they manage to maintain such complex systems for so long? It seems like it would require huge coordination.
Their longevity is astounding, partly because their decentralized, community-governed management has underpinned both urban and agricultural resilience for millennia. These weren't centrally managed state projects typically. They were often built and maintained by local communities who depended on them directly. Their sustainability is proven over the very long term. This isn't just an ancient technology, it's a model of enduring, community-driven water stewardship.
Community ownership again. Seems vital.
Absolutely. Other examples of ingenious traditional water harvesting include the beautiful stepwells of South Asia, designed for accessing fluctuating groundwater levels, the Lyman systems in Israel and other arid regions, which are essentially constructed depressions that capture runoff to grow trees in the desert, and the more contemporary swales and contour buns, widely used in permaculture, designed to slow, spread, and sink rainwater into the landscape. What's fascinating across all these is the ingenuity born from necessity, creating systems that aren't just sustainable in terms of resource use, but are often actively regenerative for the land and the community, even in the most challenging arid environments.
That ingenuity is incredibly inspiring, born out of necessity and deep observation indeed. Let's bring some of these ideas back to how we live in cities today and reintroduce a concept we mentioned earlier, the 15-minute city paradigm. At its core, as a reminder, it posits that residents should be able to meet most of their essential daily needs, like work, commerce, education, health, and recreation, within a short 50-minute walk or bicycle ride from their home.
It's a powerful organizing framework that fundamentally rethinks urban design around human scale, local living, and ecological efficiency. Less reliance on long commutes and cars. Its 4 core pillars, as articulated by Professor Carlos Moreno, who popularized the term, are proximity, ensuring essential services and amenities are close by; diversity, meaning a rich mix of functions, homes, shops, offices, parks, and diverse people within each neighborhood; density, but a human-scale, livable density that supports local services without feeling overcrowded or overwhelming; and ubiquity, which emphasizes equitable access to these amenities for all residents, regardless of age, income, or ability, not just creating pockets of convenience for some.
So decentralizing city life into vibrant, walkable neighborhoods.
Exactly. It's about creating cities of neighborhoods where cars become an option, maybe for longer trips, but not a daily necessity for survival.
And it's not just a theoretical concept, is it? We're seeing it being actively implemented, or elements of it, in major cities around the world, with pretty impressive outcomes reported. Paris, under Mayor Anne Hidalgo, is probably the most high-profile example. They're actively transforming schoolyards into public parks outside of school hours. adding bike lanes everywhere, reducing car space. And reports suggest it's halved travel times for many residents for daily errands, leading to improved health, better air quality, and greater equity in how public space is used. Imagine your daily commute becoming a pleasant stroll or bike ride.
It's a significant shift. Barcelona's superblocks, or Superreal, which we touched on, are another excellent concrete example. They restrict through-traffic car access to designated 3x3 blocks, essentially repurposing the internal streets for people, pedestrians, cyclists, greenery, and local activities. Studies there have shown a remarkable 31% rise in local businesses opening up within those areas, presumably due to increased foot traffic and livability, and of course the creation of more safe, green play spaces for children and families right outside their doorsteps.
So good for local economy and quality of life.
Yes. And in the US, Portland, Oregon, and in Australia, Melbourne have both adopted variations, often called 20-minute neighborhoods. Both put a strong focus on improving public health and equity through enhanced walkability, creating safe, active transport infrastructure, cycling, walking, and supporting local businesses and services within neighborhoods. The reported results generally include reduced car dependency and usage, improved public health outcomes, lower local emissions, and stronger neighborhood social cohesion.
While the 15-minute city sounds like an urban utopia, in many ways less traffic, cleaner air, more local shops, I imagine there are challenges and maybe even criticisms of this kind of radical transformation, especially when applied to existing complex cities. What are some of the hurdles or concerns?
You're right, it's definitely not a panacea, and it's faced some pushback and valid criticisms. There are, for instance, legitimate concerns about gentrification risks, as we discussed earlier. Making neighborhoods significantly more desirable can inadvertently drive up housing costs and displace lower-income residents if not managed carefully with strong equity policies. There's also the inherent complexity of transitioning existing urban infrastructure. You can't just redraw street grids or relocate essential services overnight. It requires careful planning, significant investment, and managing disruption during the transition. And sometimes, perhaps fueled by misinformation, it's been framed politically as restricting movement, when the core idea is actually about increasing freedom by reducing forced car dependency.
Or ensuring is about more choice, not less.
Exactly. However, despite these challenges, its real power lies in its potential to build city life around ecological principles, reduced emissions, less resource consumption, and social circulation, fostering local community. It fundamentally minimizes the traditional drivers of displacement and land exploitation that come with car-centric sprawl, endless commutes, and the hollowing out of neighborhood centers. It's a fundamental recentering of urban life around people and place.
If we connect this to the bigger picture then, it really is about recentering human experience around livability and connection to local ecosystems and communities, rather than designing our lives around the needs of the car and the resulting sprawl that often isolates us from both nature and our neighbors. Now let's zoom out even further, maybe to the highest level, and look at macroscopic paradigms, entire nations that are attempting to bake these harmony-centered values into their very DNA, into their national development models. A prime example, and perhaps most famous, is gross national happiness, or GNH, in Bhutan. This seems like a radical reframing of what national development even means, balancing economic factors with cultural, ecological, and governance factors, as opposed to relying solely on gross domestic product, GDP, as the main measure of progress. What does that actually entail for a country like Bhutan?
Bhutan's GNH index is truly unique and quite revolutionary in its conception. It defines national progress not just by money, but through 9 key domains. These include things you might expect, like health, education, and living standards, but also psychological well-being, time use, how people spend their time, work-life balance, community vitality, cultural diversity and resilience, good governance, and crucially for our discussion, ecological diversity and resilience. It's a far more comprehensive and holistic measure of national flourishing than purely economic indicators like GDP could ever capture.
So ecology is explicitly built into their definition of national success.
Explicitly and constitutionally. Notably, Bhutan has a constitutional mandate written into their supreme law to maintain at least 60% forest cover across the entire country in perpetuity. This commitment has been instrumental in helping them maintain their status as one of the few carbon-negative countries in the world and preserving high levels of biodiversity within their borders. And critically, there's a practical policy tool. Every significant new policy or development project proposed in Bhutan must pass a GNH screening process. Its potential impacts across all 9 domains, including ecological or happiness costs, are assessed. A sufficiently negative impact in key areas can actually serve as a veto, blocking the project, even if it promises economic benefits.
Wow. So it's not just a feel-good metric. It has real teeth in policy decisions. Imagine any new highway or factory having to prove it enhances national happiness and ecological resilience.
It's a powerful mechanism that ensures the nation's stated values are enshrined in actual governance, not just rhetoric. Now, on a vastly different scale and political context, we have China's national strategy of building an ecological civilization. This aims to update ancient Chinese philosophical principles, like Taoist harmony with nature, for the context of modern development challenges. How does a vast nation like China approach such a monumental task?
Ecological civilization? Well, what does that mean in practice for China?
It's framed as a top-level national strategy that seeks to harmonize economic development with ecological protection and restoration. It's about finding a path that avoids the pollute first, clean up later model that characterized earlier phases of rapid industrialization. It involves setting specific targets and metrics through comprehensive policy frameworks, monitoring progress, and establishing regional demonstration zones or bases to test innovative approaches. Progress isn't just measured by GDP growth anymore, though that's still important. It's increasingly evaluated on indicators like the share of clean energy in their national mix, improvements in air and water quality, increases in forest cover, biodiversity conservation efforts, and even public satisfaction with environmental quality. We see significant state investment in projects like large-scale reforestation, integrated forest village water management systems, and massive grassland restoration initiatives aimed at combating desertification, particularly in the North and West.
So a state-led effort to integrate ecology into development goals.
Exactly. Now, it's crucial to acknowledge that both the Bhutanese GNH model and China's ecological civilization strategy are complex, evolving, and certainly not without their own internal contradictions, implementation challenges, or criticisms regarding human rights or specific project impacts. Neither represents a perfect utopia. However, what's significant is that both offer national-scale blueprints for attempting to achieve ecological harmony by integrating governance, restoration efforts, policy tools, and importantly, often a re-emphasis on indigenous or traditional ecological knowledge and values within their specific cultural contexts. They show that nations are grappling with how to make this shift at the highest level.
It's fascinating and perhaps hopeful to see entire nations, whatever their system, trying to bake these values into their DNA. It shows a commitment beyond just individual projects or local initiatives. Okay, so that brings us back around to the big question, the core of our deep dive today. After exploring all these incredibly diverse examples, ancient wisdom, modern design, community action, national strategies, is it truly possible? Can we create new societal paradigms that genuinely prioritize harmony with nature, avoiding that initial degradation and displacement, and building from a place of ecological respect right from the very beginning? What's the verdict?
Well, based on the wide multiplicity of regional, historical, and contemporary models we've explored today, from the millennia-old practices of indigenous peoples to cutting-edge ecological urban design, the answer has to be a qualified, but I think ultimately resolute yes. It's not a simple yes because the challenges are immense, but the evidence strongly suggests it is possible. It's clearly not a utopian fantasy. It's actively happening in diverse forms across the globe right now, driven by communities, designers, policymakers, and nations.
Okay, a qualified but resolute yes. That's encouraging. So, if we're looking for those aha moments, for the core takeaways for our listeners from this whole exploration, can we distill some key common threads? What are the underlying patterns or principles that emerge from all these successful global practices? What makes them work?
Absolutely. I think we can distill about 6 key common threads, patterns, and principles that really stand out across these diverse examples. They offer powerful insights for how we might approach development differently wherever we are.
Okay, let's hear them. If I'm taking notes, what's the first big lesson here? The foundational principle, maybe?
The first, and perhaps the most fundamental, is design from place, not just for place. What this means is the most successful, enduring models don't impose a generic, one-size-fits-all solution onto a landscape. Instead, they start from deep observation, lived experience, and often centuries of accumulated understanding within a particular ecosystem or bioregion. Think of indigenous ways of knowing built over generations, the meticulous detail needed for bioregional mapping before planning, or permaculture's core principle of observe and interact before you design anything. It's about letting the unique character and logic of the land itself inform the design. It isn't just about minimizing harm or maintaining the status quo. It's about actively restoring and enhancing ecological function, making things better. Systems must be designed to build life, build soil, enhance biodiversity, purify water, not just slow down their decline. We saw this clearly in syntrophic farming, which actively rebuilds soil health and biodiversity as it produces food, or in city green corridors designed not just for recreation but active ecological connection, or in the concept of living buildings that aim for net positive impacts, actually producing more energy or cleaner water than they consume. It's about giving back more than you take.
Moving beyond do no harm to actively heal.
Got it.
And beyond the ecological design itself, how do we make sure these systems are actually embraced and sustained over time by the people living within them?
That brings us directly to the third crucial principle. Embrace community governance and shared stewardship. Time and time again, shared stewardship emerges as a hallmark of successful, resilient, harmony-first paradigms. Local ownership matters. Whether it's the sophisticated tribal governance structures managing ancestral lands, the hyper-local decision-making processes in eco-villages like Findhorn, participatory budgeting initiatives in cities like Curitiba, or the ancient community management of water commons like the Kanats. Empowering local communities to manage their resources collectively, to have a real say in decisions that affect their place, consistently increases the success, adaptability, and long-term resilience of these approaches. It fosters ownership, responsibility, and local pride.
Right, people protect what they feel belongs to them or what they help create. It also sounds like a blend of old and new knowledge is consistently key too. What's the pattern there?
Exactly. That's the fourth principle. Integration of diverse knowledge systems. The most adaptive, innovative, and enduring solutions rarely arise from a single perspective or discipline in isolation. They emerge from blending different ways of knowing. This means actively integrating indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, tech, with contemporary scientific understanding, local community knowledge, and insights from innovative design fields like permaculture or biomimicry. We saw this in the Aboriginal Healthy Country plans, combining tech and science for fire management, or in ecological urban planning that uses both historical ecological analysis and deep public input. No single discipline holds all the answers. Synergy is key.
Breaking down the silos between different kinds of experts, including local experts. And for these ideas to really take hold and spread, they can't just be isolated good intentions or projects, right?
Right.
They need some kind of structural support.
Precisely. That's the fifth principle. Ensure enabling legal and policy support. For these alternative paradigms to scale beyond niche examples and truly endure against competing pressures, they need robust legal frameworks and supportive public policy backing them up. Where legal frameworks explicitly prioritize ecology and community stewardship, like granting legal personhood to rivers, as in New Zealand, or mandating constitutional forest cover, as in Bhutan, or providing clear tenure rights for community forests, the possibilities for non-extractive, non-displacing development significantly expand. These structures give legitimacy, resources, and protection, making regenerative practices the easier, more logical choice, not the harder one.
Makes sense. Laws and policies shape the playing field. And finally, what's the most profound, perhaps the most deeply human common thread you observed?
The sixth, and arguably most profound, is the recognition of cultural continuity and identity as foundational. This isn't a mere add-on or a soft aspect separate from the ecological or economic efforts. It appears to be absolutely foundational to long-term success and harmony. Rituals connecting people to place, local arts expressing the human-nature bond, localized economies building community interdependence, spiritual practices reinforcing reverence for life, all these are crucial. Ecosystems are consistently healthier and more resilient in places where cultural practices maintain tight reciprocal bonds between people and nature, reinforcing a deep sense of belonging, identity, and responsibility. When people see themselves as part of the land, not separate from it, they inherently care for it differently. It's woven into who they are.
Wow. Those 6 principles really paint a compelling picture of a different way forward. Design from place, regenerate, community governance, integrate knowledge, policy support, and cultural connection. But despite these incredibly powerful patterns and principles, and the existence of successful examples, it's clear there are still persistent major challenges in scaling these models, making them the dominant paradigm globally. What are the biggest hurdles that remain in the way?
That's right. We have to be realistic about the barriers. They are significant. One of the biggest, as we touched on, remains land tenure conflicts and insecurities. Existing market economies, corporate claims, and state assertions of ownership often undermine indigenous sovereignty and local community autonomy over land and resources, making it incredibly difficult to implement long-term, place-based stewardship plans. Who controls the land is fundamental. There's also the significant practical issue of scalability. While transition towards these models is undeniably possible at the project, community, and even city level, like Curitiba, scaling these deeply integrated, place-specific approaches to megacities with millions of people or entire complex nations presents enormous challenges of coordination, governance, and investment. And finally, external pressures are immense and growing. Things like the demands of the globalized economy for cheap resources, the accelerating impacts of climate shocks, droughts, floods, storms that can overwhelm local resilience, and the volatility of political will and policy support can test even the strongest local models, making long-term planning and investment risky.
So insecure rights, difficulty scaling up, and buffeting from global forces. Those are major headwinds.
They are. Which means the necessary paradigm shift toward harmony-centered development is neither a utopian fantasy nor something that will happen automatically just because it's a good idea. It's not mere greenwashing either, when done genuinely. It's an ongoing, achievable, but challenging realignment of how humans interact with the planet and each other. It requires immense tenacity, deep humility, learning from mistakes, profound structural changes in our economies and governance systems, and crucially, cross-domain solidarity collaboration between scientists, designers, policymakers, community leaders, indigenous knowledge holders, artists, everyone. In short, only by committing to working with nature, understanding its patterns and limits from the very beginning, not treating it as an externality or something to fix later, can societies truly hope to meet their physical, cultural, and spiritual needs without diminishing the world's abundance and life support systems for other species and for future generations of humans.
This deep dive has certainly shown us that building societies that actively enhance, rather than merely minimize damage to, the health of their living environment is not just theoretically possible, but is actively in motion, in fragments, and sometimes whole systems, across every inhabited continent. From the community Doug Johads of India bringing water back to villages, to the vast indigenous protected areas stewarding biodiversity in Australia. From Curitiba's decades-long journey of integrated urban planning in Brazil, to Masdar City's ambitious technological design in the UAE desert. And even in the systematic national approaches being attempted in places like Bhutan and China, the evidence for alternatives is abundant and growing.
The examples are truly global and incredibly diverse, aren't they? They demonstrate that societies can choose a different path. They can meet human needs without fundamentally reducing the world's natural abundance or displacing life. It just requires that fundamental shift. Working with nature's principles from the very beginning, seeing ourselves as part of the ecosystem rather than trying to impose our will upon it and then dealing with the consequences after the fact. It's about a profound shift in mindset, in values, and ultimately in design.
So, maybe the deepest form of development, the most advanced kind, isn't about expanding our physical footprint ever outwards, but about deepening our connection, our understanding, and our responsibility within the places we inhabit. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener. What does it mean for you to design with nature in your own life, your home, your work, or your community, even in seemingly small ways? How might a single choice you make today about what you consume, how you manage water or waste, how you interact with your local environment, or what you advocate for? How might that choice ripple outwards, contributing, even in a small way, to a more harmonious and regenerative future for all? We encourage you to reflect on that question and explore these fascinating ideas further. Until next time on A Deep Dive, keep diving deep. Imagine a future where our rural landscapes aren't just these leftover patches of green clinging on amidst all the human expansion. Instead, they're vibrant, thriving ecosystems that actually define how we develop, where human communities live in, well, genuine harmony with nature.
It sounds idyllic, almost.
It does, but for too long, our approach to rural progress, it's been this relentless process, hasn't it? Transforming and exploiting land.
Absolutely. Dig it up, pave it over, move on.
Exactly. And we've seen irreversible changes. We've lost critical ecosystem services, even seen whole communities displaced, all in the name of progress.
Yeah, the traditional model.
But what if we could fundamentally flip that script? What if we could design and actually implement rural communities that are sustainable, rich in biodiversity, deeply respectful of natural ecosystems? Not as some kind of add-on later.
Right, not as an afterthought.
But from their very inception, from the very beginning.
Getting it right from the start.
Yes. This isn't about patching things up after they've broken. It's about getting it right from the ground up, designing resilient systems from day one. And, well, that's exactly the mission of this deep dive. We're going to explore if this bold new vision is truly possible, not just theory on paper, but in the gritty, complex reality of practice.
And to tackle this incredibly complex and, let's be honest, urgent question, we've really pulled from a rich tapestry of sources.
Okay.
Our deep dive today, it's going to synthesize insights from some foundational theoretical frameworks like ecological economics, social ecological systems, stuff like that.
The big ideas.
The big ideas, yeah. And then we'll ground them in some really compelling real-world case studies, places like the innovative Nanxi village in China, and also the pioneering village homes right here in the U.S.
Fascinating contrasts.
Definitely. And we'll also dissect practical on-the-ground strategies, things like nature-based solutions and the surprisingly effective payment for ecosystem services schemes.
Right.
So our ultimate goal for you today is really to uncover what genuinely works, identify the immense opportunities that lie ahead, and, confront the significant challenges we absolutely must overcome to make this new paradigm of harmonious rural development a tangible reality.
Okay. Let's unpack this then, before we dive into those concrete living examples. It feels crucial that we understand the foundational ideas, right? The thinking that underpins this whole revolutionary vision for rural development. When you looked at the material, what are the core philosophies guiding this essential shift away from those old exploitative models?
Well, the intellectual journey for this new paradigm, it really begins with ecological economics.
Okay.
And, what's really fascinating about that is that it fundamentally insists that all economic activity, every single transaction, every factory, every farm is embedded within and ultimately constrained by the biophysical limits of our ecosystems.
So nature sets the budget, essentially.
Precisely. It's a profound departure from traditional economic thought, which, let's face it, often treats nature as just an endless resource to be extracted or, a convenient sink for waste, almost like it's outside the economic system altogether.
Right, an externality.
Exactly. Ecological economics completely flips that view. It argues that the health and integrity of our natural environment aren't just external factors or, nice to haves. They're the very foundation upon which all prosperity, all human well-being must be built. It's about recognizing that nature provides the ultimate non-negotiable budget for human activity.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And a truly powerful manifestation of this thinking comes from Chinese policy, articulated in this idea called the two mountains theory.
Two mountains, okay.
Yeah, the concept states that lucid waters and lush mountains are golden and silver mountains.
Poetic.
It is beautiful, but it's not just poetic language. It's a potent economic and environmental philosophy. It means that high-quality ecological assets, think pristine rivers, vibrant forests, healthy wetlands, clean air, they aren't just beautiful things to preserve. They are themselves a form of intrinsic, invaluable wealth.
So nature is the gold and silver.
Exactly. And the implication is revolutionary for rural areas. Their true comparative advantage doesn't lie in just digging up minerals or clear-cutting forests for immediate commodities, things that can be quickly exhausted.
All right, short-term gains.
Instead, it lies in their enduring biophysical resources, their capacity for essential ecosystem regulation like providing clean air and water, regulating climate, preventing floods, and their unique cultural landscapes. It's about recognizing the potential value of these ecological products and, crucially, converting that into tangible socioeconomic benefits for poverty alleviation. Basically monetizing stewardship and conservation rather than destruction and extraction.
So it's about seeing nature not just as a resource to be consumed, but as capital. a fundamental living asset that generates wealth and well-being over the long term. That really does shift the perspective, doesn't it? From extraction to long-term investment. I'm curious, what else forms this theoretical bedrock, especially when we think about how communities actually manage these shared natural assets?
Yeah, that's a great question because it naturally leads us straight to the Social Ecological Systems Framework, or SES for short.
SES, okay.
This owes a tremendous debt to the Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom's groundbreaking work, her work on how communities manage shared resources.
Right, avoiding the tragedy of the commons.
Exactly that. Her research essentially asked that critical question. How do communities successfully manage common pool resources, shared land, water, forests, fisheries, without depleting them? The SES framework, it gives us a comprehensive analytical lens for understanding the intricate interplay between the resource system itself, the governance arrangements people put in place, the collective actions of the people involved, and then the resulting ecological and social outcomes within these rural communities. It's all interconnected.
A dynamic view.
Very dynamic. And our sources highlight several key components for success in rural development, pulling directly from this SES framework. Things like the importance of self-organized or co-managed governance of those common pool resources.
Meaning the community runs it.
Or has a significant role, yeah. Setting rules, enforcing them. It also emphasizes robust social capital, the networks, the trust, the norms that actually allow people to cooperate.
Makes sense.
Effective local leadership is crucial too, as is broad stakeholder participation, getting everyone involved, hearing diverse voices. Clear property rights are vital so people know the rules of the game. And crucially, it means making sure all economic activities respect the ecosystem's inherent carrying capacity. You can't just take everything.
Right, living within those limits again.
Exactly. And this isn't just theory. The SES framework, it's seen significant empirical validation in incredibly diverse places. We see it working in Guizhou province in China, where local communities successfully manage complex water and forest systems.
Wow.
And in countless global community forestry initiatives where local populations successfully manage forests for sustainable benefit. It proves that shared resources can be sustainably governed from within the community.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just about the trees or the water, but about the people organizing themselves around these shared resources.
Yeah.
With the strong social ties and clear rules, which kind of begs the question, how do we foster development approaches that truly empower communities from within, rather than just imposing solutions from the outside?
Exactly. And modern theory also places a huge emphasis on asset-based and participatory approaches.
All right.
This is all about endogenous models of development, meaning they are internally driven, they sprout from the community itself.
So bottom up, not top down.
Precisely. Rather than communities just waiting for external help or focusing only on what they can dig up and sell off, these models encourage communities to identify and build on their existing assets.
Assets aren't just natural resources.
No, not at all. They encompass ecological strengths, sure, but also deep social connections, unique cultural heritage, even existing bits of infrastructure that are already there. It's a shift from a deficit mindset, what do we lack, to one that asks, what do we already have that we can build upon?
I like that framing. Building on strengths.
It's powerful. And the source material highlights specific frameworks that do this, like participatory rural appraisal, PRA, the asset-based community development, ABCD model, and various collaborative governance approaches.
Right.
And the benefits are huge, they've been shown again and again. They lead to increased relevance of rural projects because they're designed by and for the community. They foster genuine legitimacy and long-term sustainability because the community really owns it.
Mm-hmm.
They integrate invaluable local and indigenous knowledge stuff, often overlooked by outside experts, but critical for getting it right locally. And they promote transparency and, perhaps most critically, capacity building, equipping people with the skills and confidence to lead their own development. It's about unlocking potential, not just filling gaps.
It really sounds like a truly holistic approach, putting the community right at the center, empowering them. But how does all this local stuff tie into broader policy? Bridging that gap between community action and the larger governmental frameworks needed to support and scale these efforts.
That's the final theoretical piece, really. Policy integration and systemic planning.
Okay.
Organizations like the UN, leading policy institutes, they're increasingly pushing for win-win-win policy design.
Win-win-win.
Yeah. It means recognizing that rural sustainability isn't about making these tough trade-offs where you sacrifice the economy for the environment or social well-being for profit.
It's not either.
Exactly. It requires optimizing economic, social, and environmental goals simultaneously, seeing them as mutually reinforcing. The idea is that a healthy economy can support a healthy environment, which supports a thriving society, and back again. They're all part of the same system.
Interconnected.
Totally. And within this, systematic conservation planning, or SCP, serves as this vital technical and institutional scaffold.
SCP, okay. Scaffolding.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, it provides a structured, evidence-based process for aligning land use planning, biodiversity preservation, and rural economic development. The genius of SCP is how it systematically forces us to confront potential trade-offs up front and ensures conservation is baked into development plans from the start, not just, bolted on later.
Planning ahead.
Right. Through clear goal setting, robust data integration, ecological, social, economic data, ongoing monitoring to see what's working, and adaptive management, meaning the plans can change as needed. The real insight, I think, is that this structured approach prevents future conflicts by getting everyone on the same page early on. It makes ecological goals achievable and legitimate, not just wishful thinking.
These theories are powerful. They really paint a picture. But the real test, of course, is putting it into practice. So let's move from the conceptual realm now and look at some places where this is actually happening, where these ideas have been brought to life. This is where it gets really interesting, right? We have two fascinating case studies to dive into, showing how this can work in vastly different contexts.
Absolutely. Our first example takes us to Nanxi Village in China. This case offers a truly compelling empirical demonstration of that endogenous rural revitalization we just talked about.
Right, the bottom-up approach.
Yeah, and based squarely on that two mountains theory, lucid waters and lush mountains are golden and silver mountains. It's a living testament to that philosophy.
So tell us about Nanxi Village.
Okay, so Nanxi is in Hubei province. It covers about 6 square kilometers, maybe a bit more, 247 households, around 1,300 residents. Historically, despite being really rich in ecological resources, forests, wetlands, good farmland, the village struggled. Persistent poverty, low economic output.
A common story, unfortunately.
Very common. The critical challenge was, how do they leverage these ecological assets to lift the community without destroying the very natural capital they possess?
The core dilemma.
Exactly. So the villagers and planners there, they constructed this comprehensive development framework. They strategically aligned 3 major functional zones within the village: an urbanized zone, a main agricultural production zone, and a key ecological function zone.
Wait, zoning based on function.
Right. And each zone was directly linked to corresponding ecosystem services: provisioning services, food, regulating services like water purification, and cultural services like tourism, heritage.
Makes sense.
But here's the crucial, almost counterintuitive insight that completely reoriented their path. Through incredibly detailed spatial analysis.
The science bit.
Science bit, yeah. They discovered that Nanxi Village's greatest asset wasn't its timber or its crops, which you might assume. It was the immense value of its regulating ecosystem services.
Regulated? Like what?
Things like water regulation, carbon sequestration, flood mitigation. These accounted for an astonishing 82% of their total gross ecosystem product, or GEP.
82%, wow.
Yeah, GEP is a way to measure the economic value from ecosystems. And that 82% absolutely dwarfed the value from provisioning services, like farming, which was 16%, or cultural services at only 2%. This scientific discovery fundamentally changed their whole economic strategy.
Because they realized where the real value was.
Precisely. And this realization led to a development path centered on what they called industrial ecologization.
Industrial ecologization, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, it sounds a bit jargony, I know. But basically it means weaving that high ecological value right into the branding and marketing of their local products.
Like branding.
Exactly, like branding their premium bamboo, their unique citrus fruits, their organic fishery products, all based on the pristine environment. The ecological quality became a premium selling point, boosting market value.
This is smart.
And alongside that, they pursued ecological industrialization, developing ecotourism and cultural services, like promoting the Yangtze fishing song heritage, weaving their cultural identity with nature.
So multiple streams of income, all tied to ecology.
Right. But here's a critical detail central to this new paradigm. All development was meticulously planned within strict red lines for arable land and ecosystem protection.
Red lines. Like boundaries.
Exactly. Non-negotiable boundaries. It meant they deliberately avoided any habitat destruction or wildlife displacement from the very beginning. They weren't fixing damage later. They prevented it through foresight.
Planning around nature, not through it.
You got it. In terms of implementation, they adopted a 3 zones and 5 parks spatial organization, carefully mapping land use to ecosystem service strengths.
Very organized.
And community engagement was paramount. Repeated surveys, participatory planning forums, ensuring deep local buy-in, plus big efforts in building local capacity, supporting farmer cooperatives, attracting talent aligned with their ecological goals.
So building skills too.
Absolutely. And the outcomes, well, they're pretty remarkable. They achieved a triple per capita GEP, a concrete economic uplift for residents, growth without ecological compromise.
Couple.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. Plus, scientifically optimized land use, better market access, higher incomes, and crucially, no loss of biodiversity. Also, local job creation, cultural continuity preserved, and high local legitimacy for the whole thing. A real win-win-win.
So what does this all mean for us? Nanchi Village really shows that a scientifically informed, participatory, ecologically grounded path can yield substantial economic gains and sustain biodiversity and cultural resilience. Without that initial phase of exploitation, it's not just theory, it's a living, breathing model. A blueprint, really.
Powerful blueprint.
That's an incredible story from China, a village literally transforming its destiny by embracing its natural capital. But I'm sure many listeners are thinking, okay, that's China, maybe specific circumstances. Could something similar happen in a completely different context, a more developed country, different culture, different economy?
Absolutely. And that brings us nicely to Village Homes in Davis, California.
Ah, California.
Yeah, this is a pioneering example of ecologically harmonious, sort of rural suburban development. And it was conceived and built